There's a lot of it, I'll tell you.
Good evening and welcome to our meeting number 8. Today is Monday, November the 17th of 2025, and this is our Corporate Services Committee meeting. I am the chair, Councillor Shelley Braderick, and I have a couple of comments to the public, including those online. Comments can be made from members of the public for a matter that is on the agenda by advising the chair during the request to address an item on the agenda section of the agenda. The public may submit written comments for matters that are on the agenda to jpaylove@westlincoln.ca before 4:30 p.m. on the day of the meeting for consideration by the committee. Comments received after 4:30 p.m. on the day of the committee meeting will be considered at the following council meeting. Comments submitted are included in the record. This meeting will be live streamed as well as recorded and available on the Township website. Also, all cell phones, pagers, and our PDAs are to be turned off. Members of the public who are attending and participating virtually are reminded to keep their microphones muted until they are acknowledged to speak. And again, this meeting will be live streamed as well as recorded and available on the Township website. The land acknowledgement statement. The Township of West Lincoln, being part of the Niagara region, is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Adirondack, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nation, Métis, and Inuit from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Township of West Lincoln, as part of the regional municipality of Niagara, stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Just looking to my colleague to see if there's any change in order of items on the agenda. Seeing none. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and/or conflict of interest? Seeing none of those as well. 5, we have an appointment. 5.1 is item CS64-25, Stephen Seuss, Sex Offender Registry. And I believe he is online, and if IT could get him ready to go there, we'll be happy to have the presentation. Welcome, Mr. Seuss.
Hello, West Lincoln Council. Thank you for having me, and it's great to be with you, even though it's virtual. I just got back from work, so I wasn't able to make it in person. But tonight I'm presenting on the need for a public sex offender registry in both Ontario and Canada. Now, if you've seen the news today, several of the national news media outlets have reported that Doug Ford is open to making parts of the sex offender registry public. So he said that today, the Ontario Sex Offender and Sex Trafficker Registry, of course, as of right now, it is only available through law enforcement agencies. Now, 9 of 13 of Niagara's municipalities have already supported a public registry, either provincially, federally, or both, in some way, shape, or form. So I'm asking West Lincoln to add their voice to the call, because now momentum is on our side now that we have these comments from Premier Ford as of today. So that's very important to note. And I know Mayor Cheryl Ganan at this meeting has an item for a crime prevention motion. So I would like to offer a friendly amendment that West Lincoln also support the call for a public Ontario sex offender registry and a national public sex offender registry. My team, composed of myself, Alicia Gugu, Melissa Gugu, Liz Emerson, my cousin Ashley Wilcox, and several others, have been fighting hard to make this registry public. And we really want to see all 13 of Niagara's municipalities on board with the call to action. That's very important right now, because residents deserve to know if a offender is living in their area. No one wants to live next to a sex offender, and we need to protect and safeguard our children, and we need to protect and safeguard ourselves. This is not about vigilantism. This is not about harassment. There are already laws in place to protect individuals from those kind of crimes and that behavior. But knowing where the sex offender lives is an important deterrent to crime as well, because maybe a sex offender is going to think twice before they abuse a child if they know they're going to end up on a public registry for the rest of their lives. So that serves as an important deterrent to crime. And I've discussed this with several counselors and given my opinion to it. And I know there's support at the table for such a call to action. And the Premier has also stated that he would be willing to use the notwithstanding clause in any charter challenge regarding the public sex offender registry. So this comes at a time when we are still mourning as a community for what happened to that little girl. And it should have never have happened, but it did. And this is a repeat violent sexual offender who committed these crimes. And we need to really take a strong stance against this type of criminal acts. So with that, I'll answer any questions that West Lincoln has, but I do ask that tonight, West Lincoln Council, you take action on this matter, as it's very important, and you will join 9 other municipalities in doing so. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Seuss. I'll look around to see if I have any comments or questions from any of my colleagues. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Chair Bradrick. So through you to the presenter, Stephen Seuss, once again, thank you, Stephen, for taking the time to come out to West Lincoln, even virtually. You've always been a voice of those who can't often speak for themselves, so we certainly appreciate seeing you and appreciate the push for this. I agree with you. I think this is something that needs to be dealt with through the provincial and federal governments. We need all layers of government working together. Through you, Madam Chair, to our clerk. As far as the request tonight to have an item, I guess, amended on the following, report that will be coming shortly, is there room for that? Does that actually work in this particular situation, or should we be considering adopting something similar that one of the other neighboring municipalities have done already?
Through the chair to Councillor Riley and to the rest of council, from my perspective, I would recommend waiting until the next council meeting should a councillor wish to put forward a motion supporting this direct cause that Mr. Seuss is advocating for. The motion you see in front of you was released to municipalities in the area, focusing largely from the Niagara Regional standpoint. This is a Niagara Regional motion that they put forward supporting the city of Welland in a similar fashion to what Mr. Seuss is saying. I recognize Mr. Seuss is recommending a friendly amendment. However, I would recommend, for council's sake, to allow administration to go back and study that recommendation that you're seeing from other municipalities and then present something similar should council wish to see it in the following meeting, which would be December 8th, I believe.
So that was my next question, Madam Chair, is if that would be able to be at council next week, or is suggesting the last council meeting in December?
I think it's the meeting right before, yes. Yeah.
Okay. So
I would recommend that.
Recess? Okay, perfect. So through you, Madam Chair, to the presenter, Stephen, I hope that's all right with you. I think that probably makes the most sense for tonight. I know you're a mover and a shaker and you'd like to see things done right away, but I think it's important that we get this right and make sure that message is very clear. So just to let you know, we hear you and see what other members around the horseshoe here have to say, but I certainly could see working with staff there and seeing what we can bring back for December for you.
If I may respond to the councillor, if I may, Chair.
Yes, of course, Stephen.
Yes, so I'm totally in favor of anything that involves taking action. As long as it's not put to the back burner, then I'm agreeable to it. We can't forget about victims in the community who are begging for this to happen. So there are many other motions from other neighboring municipalities that administration could look at as well, and you could either go either way with endorsing some of those resolutions or making one yourself. So I would just add that if that's helpful to the council.
Appreciate that. If I may, Madam Chair, back through you to the clerk, do you require a resolution for that direction to report back to council, or can we leave this with you and then that will just come back naturally?
Through the chair, if Councilor Riley feels comfortable, of course, you're not obligated to. You could put the notice to me right now that you would like to see this come forward in the December 8th, and I could provide
Okay.
a resolution as an example to council December 8th. You
So
could
I would
move that.
Yes, yeah, I have no
yourself if you'd
problem
like.
putting that notice forward
Okay.
at this point,
Okay.
Madam Chair. And then that way we can have something come back to us and let council decide at that date. Thank you.
Councillor Maychuk.
Through the chair to Stephen, first of all, thanks for your strong advocacy in this cause. My question is, and I probably should know this, but is there such a registry like this anywhere in the country, or would Ontario be the first?
That's a great question, Counselor. So in terms of a public registry, I'm pretty sure that Ontario would be the first. So the United States does have a public registry, in place. So I'm pretty sure, that's my answer. I'm pretty sure this would be the first. And I was just doing a quick look up, and it says no, Canada does not have the public registry, and I don't think any of the provinces do. And the Canadian, yeah, there's none in the Canadian provinces as well, Councillor. So there you have it. We would be the first in Ontario.
Okay, sorry, Mayor Ganan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So through you to Stephen. So I don't know whether you have seen the resolution that we're putting forward. It's a very long one, a lot of whereases, and it sort of is a very important first step, I think, in Niagara. So don't shut off. We have one other item that the chair is going to just bring forward, and I don't think there's too much there. And then we will have that resolution. So you will be able to know clearly what it is that we're supporting tonight, Stephen, okay?
I really appreciate that, Mayor Ganan. I will definitely keep the feed on.
Okay.
And watch as the motion is deliberated on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Seeing no other questions, Stephen, again, thank you very much for your passionate presentation. And as Mayor Ganan said, please stay online and listen for the up-and-coming resolution that's coming before council.
I really appreciate that, Chair. And, I've been fighting for this since August, before the incident happened, when I appeared to Niagara Falls Council to talk about a public registry. So I'm very pleased to get to speak to all of you tonight.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 6, a request to address items on the agenda. 1 hour in total should be allocated for this section of the agenda, and each individual person shall only be provided with 5 minutes to address the issue. Some exceptions may apply. A response may not be provided, and the matter may be referred to staff. Are there any members of the public that are present tonight who wish to address any items on the Corporate Services Committee agenda? Seeing none, and turning to Kevin, is there anybody virtually?
Not seeing any, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 7.1, item CS 65-25, Mayor Cheryl Glennan, re-strengthening laws, sentencing and parole restrictions. The recommendation before us is, whereas the city of Welland and the broader Niagara region have been deeply shaken by the recent violent sexual assault of a toddler in Welland. Whereas court documents confirm the accused was previously convicted of sexual assault of a minor, ordered to register as a sex offender, but was released from his original sentence months early with limited conditions. Whereas the release of repeat sexual offenders into our communities poses an unacceptable risk to children, families, and public safety. Whereas municipalities lack the authority to legislate sentencing and offender release policies, but the province of Ontario and the government of Canada hold responsibility for ensuring that laws, sentencing guidelines, parole, and release practices protect the public from repeat violent and sexual offenders. Whereas Canada's existing criminal justice system has permitted offenders convicted of the most serious crimes, including crimes against children, to be released prematurely despite ongoing risks to the community, and such leniencies in bail, sentencing, and release conditions have contributed to repeat victimization of children and other vulnerable Canadians. And whereas Niagara South Member of Parliament Fred Davies is presenting a petition to the House of Commons demanding changes to the criminal code to make bail and early release provisions more restrictive for repeat violent and child sex offenders. Now, therefore, be it resolved. 1, that the West Lincoln Council formally call on the governments of Ontario and Canada to review and strengthen laws, sentencing provisions, and parole eligibility for individuals convicted of sexual offenses, ensuring that repeat offenders are not prematurely released into the communities where they pose an ongoing threat. 2, that Township of West Lincoln Council request that the Province of Ontario establish stricter monitoring measures, including mandatory long-term supervision orders, GPS monitoring, and enhanced public safety provisions for all individuals convicted of sexual offenses. 3, that the Township of West Lincoln Council request that the Attorney General of Ontario, the Ministry of the Solicitor General, and the Minister of Children, Community and Social Services report back to municipalities on steps being taken to address gaps in legislation, sentencing, and supervision of repeat sex offenders. 4, that Township of West Lincoln Council express its support for amendments to the Criminal Code of Canada to make bail, sentencing, and release conditions more restrictive for repeat violent offenders, particularly sex offenders, and that this support be communicated to MP Fred Davies for inclusion in his petition to the House of Commons, and 5, that a copy of this motion be sent to the Premier of Ontario, the Attorney General of Ontario, the Minister of Children, Community and Social Services, the Prime Minister of Canada, the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, the Minister of Public Safety, Democratic Institutions and Intergovernmental Affairs, all Niagara area members of provincial parliaments, MPPs, all Niagara area members of parliament, MPs, and all local area municipalities. May I have a motion to pass this, accept this recommendation? Mayor Gannan?
So I will make the motion.
And second? Councillor Riley? Mayor Gannan?
Thank you. So I would like to speak to this just very, very briefly, and I think that now that you have sort of heard our chair read the depth of this resolution, I see that it's important that we let it stand as it is in support of all of the other municipalities in Niagara and let that go, and then tackle the second part of that separately from what's going on here. I think the initial thing is really trying to support the strengthening of the laws that are already in place rather than try to get something new on board as well. And so I think it's a very thorough resolution. It is the same one that was passed at the region and is going around, making its way to each individual municipality. And I know that Stephen knows that it has been accepted already in many. And I think that, and you may not know, but Fred Davies was a newly elected member. He had been sitting on regional council. And he ran in the last election, and so he is a new member. And so I think it's also important that Niagara support him in this role of advocacy for Niagara. So thank you.
Apologize. Any other members? Councillor Riley?
So mine's very brief, Madam Chair. I'm just going to ask for a recorded vote when the time comes.
Councillor Rayner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I find that deeply disturbing, and I find it deeply disturbing because we've elected people that are supposed to look after the best interests of the public. They're paid very well for doing that. And now we're asking them to do something that has been going on for a long time, and they've done nothing about it. It just bothers me that we're going through all this and we're copying everybody on this, and everybody on this should have already had something done to protect the interests of the taxpayers who elected them with the trust that they would look after us. Why are we doing their job, and why are they even there? This is frustrating to me. This is unnecessary. This is why we elected people to protect us. The Prime Minister is supposed to look after the Criminal Code of Canada. First thing he did was take off to BC to go to a gay pride parade. I don't understand why he hasn't, in the period of time he's been playing around with Trump and everything else, that he hasn't made this a priority, because the people of Canada have been saying that the criminal code protects the guilty and hurts the innocent, and nothing has been done about it. And now we've got to petition the people who we had elected that should be doing this without having to tell them that they need to do this, because they should already know that.
Councillor,
Councillor,
do you have a question for the clerk or perhaps the mayor?
I guess it goes back to Madam Mayor. You say the Niagara region has approved this, but isn't the Niagara region concerned that they're doing something that should have already been done? This seems to be, this just seems to be totally wrong. This should never have come up, because it should have been addressed a long time ago if the people that we elected were doing their job.
Mayor Gannan?
I'm asking you,
You're asking me a question, but I'm not sure what the question is.
the
I'm sorry.
question is, why is the region doing this if we're not getting the job done with the people that we've got elected? Why are they not directing it more towards getting those people who are elected to do their jobs, instead of going around from municipalities saying everybody's going to support it?
So the point is, this started in defense of a 3-year-old, I'm not even sure she was 3, child, who was sexually abused, attacked, and ended up in hospital.
We know that, yes.
So it became an issue that the residents of Welland brought forward. They've petitioned all around, and they've taken that to the next level of government. So they've taken it to their own municipality, and their own municipality has brought it forward to the region. So if it's not working, and you could very well be correct, it's not working from the top down.
It's not
So the
working.
point is, let's say, this is how we're all feeling. It doesn't matter that there's one individual at the top. We now have this person who has been injured, and the community is rallying behind this issue, because this one child is not the only person who has ever had this happen. So you're absolutely correct in that the job is probably not being done appropriately, but I think it's very appropriate that now those of us at the bottom end say, hey, we've had enough of this, and you need to listen to us. It's no different than when I think our residents call us about an issue and want us to stand on their behalf in terms of an issue. This is not the same kind of thing that we deal with, but it is still a response to, by elected officials, to the people who brought this forward to them.
Do you have a follow-up question, or is that it?
This is just not sex offenders. This is everything else. We had a police officer killed in Simcoe by an Indigenous individual who was released on parole with a huge criminal rap sheet that's 2 pages long. We have a major problem with crime in this country not being addressed properly, and therefore out of control, to the adverse effect of the innocent bystanders who have their family hurt and emotionally destroyed, because our government, which we elected to protect us, isn't doing their job, and now we have to give them a wake-up call? There's something badly wrong with the whole system in this country, that we have elected people that do not recognize, understand their responsibility, see what's going on.
Do you have a follow-up
question,
question, Councillor? I can hear your passion, and I think that the recommendation that's before us is certainly going to bring those things hopefully further along than where they ever have been. And I'm going to go to Councillor Trumbetta.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's no doubt that my colleague across the table is 100% right. And he speaks with passion. I think he speaks for what a lot of people are thinking in their heads. There's no doubt what he's saying is, the country has failed us. Mr. Suze has been advocating for, this community, but it should take a lot more than just Mr. Suze. He's got a passion for this, and there should be more that should be done. Sometimes these letters, and I'm glad the mayor brought this forward, we have to do this, but there should be the word punishment in here, because there's no punishment for anything. I'd like to see there should be extreme punishments for these sort of things. I didn't see it it said to kind of,
Sentencing provisions.
there should be the word punishment in some way, but again, no offense to you, Madam Mayor, it's just how I feel, and I can see my colleague feels, because, the punishment doesn't fit the crime, and that's the problem, and we have to do more in Canada. I think Canada, this is a major thing, and I've seen the protesting going out in St. Catharines as I see it happening over and over, and, this is a major thing, and it really, really bothers me, like my colleague there, but there's also crimes that are getting overlooked, and something needs to be done, and I think we need to do more as many municipalities of all Ontario and all of Canada. So I don't disagree with my colleague there. He's passionate, and I fully support what he said. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's important to note that this is a call to action due to inaction. Something, I think we can all agree on that has been, our judicial system has been, broken in several parts for many, many decades, and it feels like it just gets worse. I think the other day I was just hearing on the radio, there's a comment made about someone doing something unlawful, and they kind of made a joke about the fact, he'll do 30 seconds in jail. Like, that's the point we're at in society, where people aren't taking anything serious. So I hope, and I appreciate Madam Mayor for bringing this, so through you, Madam Chair, to the Mayor, I appreciate you bringing this forward on behalf of the region, and I think it's important that we stand united. I think this is our opportunity to show support, and if we already heard earlier today from the Premier talking about things he would like to do or his approach to combating it, unfortunately I think it's just gone so many years neglected that I don't think there's a Band-Aid that can fix the damage that's been done. I think it's a deeper rooted situation. So hopefully this is one small step towards a bigger leap for progress in this matter. And so again, to what Councillor Rayner, was mentioning about why, I think he meant that more rhetorically. But again, this is our chance to kind of act when there hasn't been any action, and hopefully this is successful. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Maychuk.
Through the chair, I think we all agree with Councillor Reiner that more should have been done in the past, and it's unfortunate that situations like this do occur, but I'm glad that now, collectively, not just this municipality, but other municipalities, and hopefully the province as well gets behind this, and something can be done more serious to avoid situations like this from happening, hopefully again.
Seeing no other councillors wishing to comment, if I could just provide a couple of comments. I think that as I sit here, not as a municipal councillor, but as a citizen of Canada, I would want to advocate for the safety and well-being of all. But in particular, we're not doing at all our role as citizens if we cannot provide basic safety for the most vulnerable, and especially those of children. And we need to all stand together collectively, be it that we're elected officials or not, that we need to be advocating for rules and regulations, for stronger sentencing, and people being held in custody when they should not be released. I certainly admire all councillors' passion, in particular Councillor Rayner, thank you very much. We all are feeling that, and it has really rocked the broader community of not only just Welland, but Niagara and all of Ontario, and I'm sure trickling down into Canada as well. So thank you very much to the Mayor for bringing this forward, and with no other comments or questions, we will turn that to a vote.
Through the chair, Councillor Riley called for a recorded vote. I will go through my list as it is on the screen. Mayor Ganan.
Support.
Councillor Riley.
Support.
Councillor Bradrick.
Support.
Councillor Rayner.
Support.
Councillor Chichok.
Support.
Councillor Trombetta.
Support.
Councillor Maychak. That vote carries unanimously.
Thank you. After that difficult conversation, we will go on to 7.2. Item CS66-25, the West Lincoln Age Friendly. Minutes from the October 3rd, 2025 meeting. Recommendation 1, that the minutes from the West Lincoln Age Friendly Committee dated October 3rd, 2025 be received. Can I have a mover? Councillor Maychuk, and second by Councillor Trombetta. Do you have any comments or questions about those minutes? Seeing none, the vote will come in front of you. And that carries. Staff reports. 8.1, item CS67-25, the Director of Corporate Services, CFO, Caitlin Repoffs. Recommendation Report T-18, 2025, Quarter 3, 2025 Financial Update and Request for Approval of Budget Amendment BA 2025-11. Recommendation 1, that Recommendation Report T-18, 2025, titled Quarter 3, 2025 Financial Update and Request for Approval of Budget Amendment BA 2025-11, dated November 17, 2025, be received, and 2, that a new capital project be established in order for administration to undertake the work required for the planning and development engineering fee review project, and 3, that the budget amendment BA 2025-11 for an amount of $60,000 funded through the planning reserve be approved by council. Can I have a mover? Councillor Ganan, and second by Councillor Chichak. I'm going to turn to the director.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This report provides the operating and capital financial results up until Q3, so September 30th, 2025. It also provides a summary of purchasing activity and budget amendments approved by the CAO up until this same date. So those items are for information. And through this report as well, administration is requesting a 2025 budget amendment. This request is being made in consultation with the Director of Growth and Sustainability. And that budget amendment is for the purpose of establishing a project to undergo a planning and development engineering fee review. Administration recognizes the high priority of this item, and this is why it's being brought forward to council for approval ahead of the 2026 budget process. Thank you.
Thank you for that overview. Do I have any comments or questions from any of the councillors? Councillor Chichak.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, this $60,000 is coming through the planning reserve, and ergo, there is no impact to any operating budget for this year, correct?
Through Madam Chair to Councillor Chichak, that is correct.
I just wonder, will this also look at the building fees, Madam Chair?
Through Madam Chair to Councillor Chichak, this is not looking at the building user fees. There was a separate study that was looking specifically at the building user fees, which is coming to council for recommendation of new building user fees at the December all committee meeting.
Okay, the pardon me, I understand, Madam Chair, through you, that this fee review is to ensure that we are capturing all of the costs associated with the downloaded costs that came from the region, different than usual downloading from the province. Do we know, at this point in time, the tax room or the fee room that should be left over from the region? If they're not going to do it, their cost should go down, ours should go up. I just want to know if we know roughly what that is.
Back to the director.
Yes, please. And if you don't know, please don't stress. If the fees are at the region and they're coming down, because I'll ask you that subsequent question.
Go ahead.
Through Madam Chair to Councillor Chichak, we wouldn't have that information at this time, but that is something that would be evaluated through this user fee study.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I've already received one phone call about the fact that we're about to enter into a period of additional growth, about the fact that the province is trying to make housing more affordable. And I see that our only justification to this is that we are doing this in a way such that, one, there's no cost to us, although our reserve is taking a hit, but it's to make sure that we have the proper fees in place for the change that was required by the province saying no more engineering, no more planning at the region. So I just wonder that, and want to make sure that I don't want a Christmas surprise, given that this is going to be such a speedily done report, without knowing that the tax room, or as we say when we're doing it with tax dollars, but the room that is going to be vacated at the region because they're not doing the service anymore is going to be X. And our fees are going to be measured against, if X was $100 and ours is going to be $150, what happened? If ours is going to be the same as what was vacated, at least we understand that what we've done is we've transferred the tax implications to the lower tier, being more accountable, hopefully, and it won't be that we're now charging $200 for what used to cost us $100. I'd rather that it was the other way around. So I do want to make sure, Madam Chair, and my question is, will this report explain the vacated room by the region for the services that we are now going to have to carry and charge for?
To the director? Do you have an answer for that? Or should I go to the other director?
Or if the answer is just simply yes and we'll look into it, I'm willing to wait.
Through Madam Chair to Councillor Chichak, yes, that's correct. We'll have to look into that, but that's something we'll take into consideration.
Thank you. I like that answer, and all I want to do is make sure that it's not going to be that we are putting this out there and then looking like we have mud on our face because it costs more to do it locally. Thank you.
Great question. Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor Chichak brought up a good point. The planning and the engineering is being downloaded from the region. 56% of our tax dollar goes to the region. We don't usually get a lot for it. But I'd like to direct my question to the CAO then. If they're downloading the planning and engineering to the municipalities, are we reducing the amount of tax we are having to send to the region because we're not getting the services anymore? And are we able to do it at a cheaper rate? And are we getting a credit from the region that can be applied against that because we now have to do their job?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, or Madam Chair, my apologies. I think it's important to note, and I meant to Mr. Borma just to backstop me on this in case I'm missing something, but it's important to understand that the costs that the region had associated with planning were flow-through costs. So they were paid as applications were put forward by developers, they would pay a fee. Those fees went to the region to pay for the service the region was providing on the planning and engineering applications. When we're taking over those services, those fees are then paid to us. So what we're looking at is the cost recovery of the services that we're providing. Now, we are still using the region for some services such as environmental planning. So those fees still flow through us. So it's not as though that there's room on the levy, to the best of my understanding, that's being vacated by the region because of the way these costs are incurred. They're flow through, they're application fee based. So those fees now come to us to pay for our planning services, and then we would pass those along to the region for things like environmental services, which they're still providing to West Lincoln for us.
Okay, Madam Chair.
If anything there is incorrect, Mr. Borma could clarify.
Through the chair to Councillor Chichak and Councillor Rayner, I guess everything that the CAO said is correct. I'll just give an example. So on a subdivision application, prior to April 1st, when the region still had planning responsibilities, they would have a fee, as a subdivision review fee of, let's say, $20,000. And then the township, let's say, had a subdivision review fee of $20,000. They don't charge that $20,000 anymore because they don't have the planning review function to review that, but they still have an engineering review function. So anytime an application is on a regional road or connects into infrastructure, like water or sewer, that impacts regional water or sewer facilities, they'll still charge a fee. And what we've noticed is those fees are climbing. But so to answer Councillor Chichok's question, there is some room between what a developer would save not having to pay the region's fee and what they still pay with our fee. The main purpose of this study, though, is really just to address three things, and that was the last budget session that we had, there was a desire to have the manager of planning position and ensure that that position was fully covered by user fees. So that was one objective of this study. The second objective was because of the downloading of the region's responsibilities, and we actually have to do more work on the review now, things like archaeological, land use compatibility, the region used to take care of, now that's our responsibility. So there's a bit more work, which we want to make sure we're adequately being covered. And then thirdly, with the reorganization that happened earlier this year, engineering review is taking a more hands-on approach in reviewing these applications, and we want to ensure that that time is also covered through the user fees properly. So those are the three main reasons. And then it's all user pay. So I guess maybe the question where Councillor Rayner is going is that those planners that worked for the region have, I think, been reallocated to different tasks. So they're not under the planning world anymore. So they don't charge a fee for their planning services, but developers would still have to pay a fee for infrastructure review, which we still collect. So hopefully I didn't make things more confusing, but that's
Clear as mud. Councillor Rayner, do you have a follow-up question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. To the Director, you said for an example like archaeological evaluations that the region used to do, we want to make sure that we're covered. The word covered bothered me. Do you mean compensated by the region?
I'm back to the.
But because the region would have done it, so now that we have to do it, we're not on the hook for it. The region has to pay us what they would have paid if they would have done it?
So through the chair to Councillor Rayner, we don't do the archaeological assessment, we just review it together with the province. And that's a task that was previously assigned to the region. Now that the region's lost their planning approvals, a planning authority, we have to do that task. So when I say we want to ensure we're covered, we just want to ensure that the time that we spend additionally on an application looking at things like archaeological or land use compatibility that the region previously did and now we have to do, we want to ensure that our time is reflected in these fees so that it's not placed on, our time is not placed necessarily on the levy, and there's that split there. So we just want to ensure that the time that we spend reviewing and processing development applications is properly covered through the fees that we're charging.
Thank you. And the last question,
Last
Madam
question.
Chair. Is that then, through the Director, the purpose of the $60,000 for the planning, development, engineering fee review is to ensure that the dollars are adequately put there to make sure that any work that the township does is properly compensated for and not at the taxpayer's expense?
Would you like to direct that to the CFO? Or,
I can start
okay.
and then I'll pass it off to the CFO. That's the intention of this, is to ensure that our fees properly cover the cost of development, that development pays for development, and that those fees that we put in place are justified, because if a developer, they are allowed to question the fees that we present, so we want to make sure that there's a proper basis for how those fees are put together.
Does that answer your question properly?
Thank you very much.
Okay, then was there anybody on this side? I was just looking to see if somebody else had anything. Go ahead then, Councillor Chichuk.
And I thank Mr. Bourma for that additional explanation and/or our CAO. That's exactly what I'm looking for. If we've been downloaded services, which happened in the who does what era in the early 2000s, the province gave us a lot more than what they gave us the tax room for. So if we are charging the same as what the region did, that's fine. If their fee was $20,000 and ours is going to be $30,000, we have to ask, was that something that was downloaded that we now have to charge more for because they were able to buffer their costs by spreading over larger departments? I'd like that to be said, because the first question will be, golly, that didn't cost that much when they did it. So I don't want to have, as I said earlier, Madam Chair, mud on our face at either charging too much or not acknowledging that what we have now to do is more than what was done at the region. So either way, the room, whether it, and I knew they weren't going to give us the tax room, trust me, and it was a fee anyway. So I just wanted to make sure that we are very careful to say, this is what the fee was here. We can do it better, but costs have gone up, or whatever the story is. But I do want to have a very clear understanding of what the costs were, what they will be, and why.
Thank you. And going to Mayor Ganea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just one final comment. All of the discussion is accurate and worthwhile, certainly. But just for the sake of members of the public who might be watching, it was not the region who downloaded planning responsibilities to the municipalities. And I know that the people in this horseshoe probably know that. But it did, through the conversation, start to sound that way, like the region had made the decision to get out of planning. It was a provincial decision, and they removed that from the region, that planning authority. So just so that members of the public are aware that it isn't something that was just downloaded to us arbitrarily. Thank you.
Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just looking for maybe a point of clarity through you back to our director, or am I there? So you mentioned through your response to Councillor Rayner regarding with this being downloaded, and as the mayor mentioned, I actually was thinking, like, I'm pretty sure this was provincially mandated. But with that, I guess maybe trying to understand the intent would be another question, certainly not one right now. But in trying to understand a statement you made regarding the individuals, I think Councillor Rayner asked about whether or not there'd be a reduction in the regional levy, and I think the hope was with them downloading this, the municipalities, and we're going to have to figure out how to cover some of those costs, that there would be no need for some positions at the region, which would then naturally bring down some of the operational costs of the region. Did I understand correctly that your best of your knowledge that they're keeping the staff and they're just putting them elsewhere, and then instead we locally now have to hire staff, which is actually putting more burden on the taxpayer instead of the alternative?
So through the chair, I don't know if that's necessarily an answer I can really provide, or if I'm the right person to provide that. All I can say is I think that's maybe where Councillor Rayner was going with his discussion, and I just wanted to bring it back to the fees. And maybe I'll just leave it at that, and if the CAO has anything further to add, or not to put you on the spot, but.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure that, I think Mr. Bourne is correct, that we're not in a position where we can speak to the region and how they're allocating staff within their portion of the levy that we collect. But I think what we are going to do, just to bring it back to the fees, is take a look at the cost of the service that we're providing here, make sure growth is paying for growth to the maximum extent possible. And if there are questions of the region, I think, if that's best sent up to the region through our representatives.
Okay, thank you. I see Madam Mayor has possibly a response.
If I may just respond, we're in budget discussions as well at the region, and those questions are being asked.
Okay, appreciate that, because Madam Chair, one of my concerns, as we all look at budgets and trying to understand where we can cut some of the fat, make life a little bit more affordable where we can. I hear this and I think, oh my goodness, we're just going to have to hire more people, and we're still paying just as much, if not more, for the same amount of service. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Seeing no other comments or questions, we'll go to a vote. And that carries. 8.2, item CS 68-25, Fire Chief Tim Hofstink. Information report WLFD-10-2025, monthly update, October 2025. Recommendation that the information report WLFD-10-2025 titled Monthly Update, October 2025, dated November 17, 2025, be received. Can I have a mover? Councillor Rayner, second by Councillor Riley. Is there any comments or questions? Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through to the chief, are we fully staffed now in Station 1 and Station 2?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Rayner. Excuse me. We are approximately 2 firefighters short of our full complement right now.
Yes.
Through the chair, in one of each in each station, or 2 and 1 and the other is fine?
Yeah, 1 in each station
One
currently.
each.
Yeah.
That's all I have, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Trombetta.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief, I've seen your list over here.
He's
Thank you.
referring to the monthly.
Monthly dispatches,
dispatch.
sorry. I think you provided that list for us, I would imagine, right? All right. So, seeing the medical, we're getting a lot of medical ones, which is usually taking up a lot of our time. Is there any particular reason, you know, especially, I think where people are enjoying their summer in July, we get the most in July.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Trombetta. I don't know the exact reason why we saw a spike in med calls this month. We noticed it as well. Speaking with some of my staff, there are huge numbers of children that are missing from class at school. So I suspect that it's probably got a lot to do with just the seasonal viruses that tend to take off at this time of year. So
Okay.
many of these calls would be related to difficulty breathing and things of that nature, and that can definitely be related to the seasonal illness stuff.
Okay, perfect, thanks for that. And then secondly, obviously, it's the motor vehicle collisions, I think the MVCs are. Is that just West Lincoln, or is that you just kind of helping out bordering other municipalities, or is it just particularly only West Lincoln?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Trombetta, this would be strictly the fire calls to which West Lincoln Fire has been dispatched. So that would be everything within the borders of West Lincoln, but it may also at times include some of the areas of our partnering municipalities in which we have an automatic aid agreement in place, where, you know, we would be responding into some of these areas to support them.
And just from a, thank you through you, Madam Chair, to the chief, just from a council standpoint, you know, we're trying to wonder, you know, the numbers are kind of high in May, June, and July. You usually get more motor vehicle incidences in the winter months, right? Obviously, the bad weather, you know, roads. I'm trying to figure out, is these impaired? Are they stop sign runs? Are they, you know, are they for like issues for traffic? Can you just maybe weigh in a bit? You don't have to be specific, but.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Trombetta. I don't have the specifics. I can tell you that as a longtime firefighter, I've observed more anecdotally than anything, but there certainly is a large spike when the weather improves, and it's a bit counterintuitive. We do see more minor motor vehicle collisions when the weather gets bad in the winter, especially around the first snowfall. So. Those are often when people are, you know, driving a little more carefully because of the conditions, but they go off the road and there's fender benders. We don't tend to get called to those types of collisions so frequently. When we get called in, you know, in the good weather, when, you know, when the conditions are clear and people are a little less careful about driving, we frequently see more severe collisions under those circumstances, which would probably account for some of those fair weather months in which we saw the increases. So there are obviously some spikes that, you know, maybe don't necessarily have a logical reason, but it does often seem to follow that pattern where we see a fair number of more minor incidences through the winter, but the really more severe ones that, you know, that have more lasting impacts, they tend to be in better weather, which I realize is counterintuitive, but that does seem to be the case.
Well, it's interesting to know, but thanks for that insight on there. I think that opened up the conversation with the other members of my colleagues around the table. You can see Councilor Reynaud, it's Monday Night Football. He's in a three-point stance, ready to jump on a question over here. So I'll turn it back over to the chair. Thank you.
And we will go to Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the fire chief. I don't remember where we left off with this. I see, I had not too many months ago, I had inquired about whether or not we could see this a little bit more broken down by ward. I know there was some talks with I guess the detachment or the head office in the Niagara area, the St. Catharines area. I was just wondering where we're at with that, if that's something that's going to come anytime soon, or are we just plugging away at it?
Through you to Councillor Riley. We have looked into it. It will be an issue whether or not we'll be able to break that down by ward boundaries through our dispatch, through the CAD system. So some of these details came to you by paper today because the staff at the dispatch center are in the middle of rolling out their next gen 911 system, which is a very broad improvement to the 911 dispatch system. And I suspect that they've got their hands full with that. So some of these longer term projects have been a little slower moving, I think, which is probably what's to account for that.
I appreciate that. I love the analytics. I love kind of understanding, identifying patterns in terms of what maybe some of the more problematic areas are in terms of his, motor accidents, whatever. Just the other week we had a presentation from the library board. They gave us great details about a breakdown about each of the branches and how they're producing numbers. So again, I'm just thought I'd follow up because that was a question of mine not too long ago. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I might just add, we are able to get a heat map. I know that is a certain representation of the data that they have provided for us before. So I can probably get my hands on that without a whole lot of effort because I know I've seen it. Again, I can't provide any timelines on it, but it may not be as clear as what you're requesting in the terms of specifically to the wards, but having a look at the map, you can definitely see sort of the more frequent locations where these events are taking place.
Yeah, I look forward to that. Thank you.
I'm going to go to Councillor Maychuk.
Yeah, through the chair, this past summer, I personally thanked the chief, but we had a medical emergency at my home, and due to a large part of the fire department, the paramedics, and the police, a life was saved. It all ended well. So I just wanted to publicly thank you. I also want to ask the question because I changed the batteries on my CO2 detector. You mentioned in your report that your team's out educating the public to address. It's so sad when you hear there's a fire and somebody's smoke detector didn't work. So what work is being done by the fire department to better educate people to make sure that their fire detector and their smoke alarm are working?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Maychuk. We have a dedicated team of volunteers on our Public Education and Fire Prevention Division, and they participate in concert with the Communications Division of the town to spread messages through social media. So that's a large part of what we do. We also host a number of different events, or actually we are hosted at those events frequently, which includes the Legion Villa recently. Where our staff will go and speak with residents in these locations and inform them of the different changes, the best practices for fire safety. The fire code is changing in which there will be a requirement that every level in a home has a carbon monoxide detector, as well as being in all areas adjacent to the sleeping areas. So that's a bit different than it was. It includes areas even where there are no sleeping areas. So every level in a home needs to have a CO detector now, which is new. So, but we take as many different avenues as we can to get the message out. And when we host public events, this is the messaging that we've been putting out there.
Thank you. And Councillor Rayner, you had an additional question or comment?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Through to the chief. Vehicle fires. Living up in Caister, we don't see too many accidental vehicle fires. Do you differentiate between torched vehicles and vehicles that actually caught fire just because there's mechanical difficulty? I mean, you watch the news every day and there's millions of cars on the highway, and very rarely do you see a car ever on the side of the road because it caught fire. It's something that just you don't see much of. But West Lincoln seems to see a lot of them, and I know for a fact because some of them are in the middle of my field. and some of them are down the road, as you well are aware. Of those number of 16 vehicle fires, how many of them would you classify as arson?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Rayner. Excuse me. Sorry, that's a tough question to answer. The cause and determination on the reason why cars catch fire is not always determinable. And I would hate to argue with you, but it is a fairly common occurrence that people are driving along and their cars catch fire. This can come from a number of different reasons. Some of them are mechanical. Sometimes there are even recalls from manufacturers that have specific mechanical issues that result in fires. So it certainly is a thing that happens. People, they're just going about their business and their car either malfunctions and stops, or someone flags them down and there's a fire. So then they call us and we deal with it. In those cases, we often know sort of the circumstances of that vehicle fire because the person is there to tell us. Exactly. In the cases where there's no one around and, yes, the time of day might be an indication that there's something suspicious. Certainly those things happen. It's very difficult for us. The Niagara Regional Police takes care of all of the investigative processes on those types of things. If there's any suspicion that these are stolen vehicles, it will be their detective division that would be looking into that.
Thank you. Through the chief, do you find much change in the last few years? It's been pretty consistent.
It has been pretty consistent. We've had spikes over the years. I've been a firefighter in West Lincoln for a long time, and this is certainly not the high part of what we've done. We've had periods where we were basically doing these things weekly. But there's more people in West Lincoln and passing through West Lincoln, so I think that increase in traffic also increases some of these incidents happening as well. More people on the road results in more MVCs, more vehicle fires, all of that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Councillor Chichuk.
Thank you. You don't count the fires in the cars that are in the demolition derby?
No.
That was a joke.
No.
I've seen lots of fires put out by the fire department there. And Chief, I think you've had to sit through a number of our meetings with absolutely no questions, so tonight we're giving you the bonus of having questions asked, and we're taking you in the middle of the meeting. So thank you for coming, thank you for your responses. I just have a question about the motor vehicle accidents. This was asked of you earlier in the year, and I think you were working on it, and that's, you touched on it, which sparked my memory, and that was the improvement on charging non-West Lincoln residents for service going to their insurance. Mm-hmm. I know other municipalities do it, and I just wondered if we did, if we were able to do it yet.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Chichuk. We are working on that process, yes. So it is certainly our intent to do so, and we have ensured, working with the Department of Finance, to make sure that we have the fee structure in place that we're able to apply these. So the background work has been done. It is more of administrative heavy work than what we're used to. So we haven't gone through the process of making sure that the information is collected at the scene, provided through to our administration, and then brought to finance for the invoicing. So we need to get our process set up for that to happen. But the framework for it is already present. So we're definitely working towards that goal.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Chichuk. I waited through all those questions just to ask that one, and then
I'm sorry.
and then you stole it from me.
Well, I'm getting to be like the mayor, just before you want to ask something, she asks it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess just to highlight the need for that road safety study that is underway now. Certainly, hopefully that will assist in lowering some of these numbers. Definitely speed in our rural community has always been something that is concerning to me, and as a resident out there, we see it, and we do know why they're so serious of accidents when the road speed is so high. So thank you very much for your service, and we will bring that to a vote.
Record show
And that carries. Okay, moving on to other business. We have items 9.1, item CS69-25, members of committee, verbal updates from members of boards and committees if required. I will look around. Councillor Maychuk, anything? Mayor Ganan?
Just briefly, Madam Chair. One thing, because it's next week already, our community tree lighting. I know that members of council got invitations to the parade, but you did not get specific information and invitations to come to the tree lighting. But we certainly hope that you'll be there. Wednesday, 6:15, free hot dogs and hot chocolate as usual. And the Christian High School choir is also leading us in some carols. And then, of course, the Saturday after. Pardon? A week Wednesday, the 26th. And the other thing I just wanted to say, because most of you are well aware that the hospital grand opening was on Friday past, but I'm not so sure that they've publicly announced that on the 23rd, they're actually moving patients over to the new hospital, and then they are 100% open for business on the 24th. So we're that close to our new hospital. So I thought that's a good news story for this evening as well. Thank you.
Very exciting. Councillor Trombetta, anything?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Rayner? Councillor Chichuk?
Yes, Madam Chair. And now you know what it feels like when the mayor takes your thunder.
Yeah.
I too was going to mention the tree lighting that the Kiwanis are sponsoring, as well as the Township, and it is next Wednesday. So now, please come.
Councillor Riley?
Nothing.
I just have one thing, quickly. I am the council representative of the West Lincoln Library, as all of you are aware, and for those of you that are sitting here tonight maybe don't know. But on behalf of myself and the library board, I'd just like to make a shout out to our current interim CAO, Cindy Weir, who at the end of the month is going to be finished with her second stint at West Lincoln Library. Cindy has shown some dedicated service over the past 18 months during her time as the interim CAO, and she's provided some steady leadership, thoughtful guidance, and an unwavering support of our local library. And we're definitely going to miss her passion and her contributions, and wish her continued success in the whatever comes next for you, Cindy. Thank you. And seeing no other comments from members of committee on verbal updates, we'll go to 9.2, any other business items of informative nature. Seeing none. No new business, no confidential, therefore 11 and 12 are not required. And item 13 is the 2026 draft operating and capital budget. We will be taking a few-minute break, and Mayor Ganan will be taking over the chair, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. And we're back after a short break and ready to look at our 2026 budget. Just waiting. So a couple of people have indicated that they hadn't seen anything online yet, including Mike Williscraft from the newspaper. And that's because we wanted you, members of council, and the public to be the first to see this budget. It's a brand-new process. So I'm going to speak first about the process of getting to this point, and then turn this over to the Director of Corporate Services, our CFO, for her to provide you the details of our 2026 budget to this point. So as you know, we did not ask for strong mayor powers. We had no choice but to take those powers, and we've tried to use them as little as possible. We can't change the process, but I will note that many municipalities, including others in Niagara region, have already concluded their 2026 budget process under these new guidelines. So although I'm able to delegate authority on some items, I cannot delegate the responsibility for the budget. Last spring, I appropriately delegated to staff the preparation of the budget, as they are the experts. Senior staff first, as usual, worked with their own departments to develop their departmental budgets. And then, under the guidance of the CAO, the team progressed toward a great many senior leadership budget meetings during the summer months and on into September and October. Early percentage increases were quite high to start. I heard rumors, I didn't know, but I understand that they were somewhere about 12% or more. But by Friday, October the 31st, the number that I then heard for the first time was approximately 9.73%. Better, but still what alarming. My first meeting with senior staff and our CAO to learn about the budget before it was turned over to me was set for the following Monday afternoon, November 3rd, 2 weeks ago today. Our Director of Corporate Services / CFO, Caitlin Repovs, had worked diligently over the weekend, directly prior to my first meeting, and after many hours put in by her, the number stated at my initial meeting was 7.91%, with assessment growth, 9.04% without that growth. It certainly shows us the importance of assessment growth and the fact that we need more of it. It was so much better than I had heard about that Friday afternoon. It was a bit of a relief to be at that point. That same Monday evening, after an afternoon of listening to this budget presentation, I spent about 3.5 hours going over the initial documents and writing down my multitude of questions. I had the opportunity Tuesday morning to discuss those initial questions with our CAO, and later that day with the Director of Corporate Services. Having had some of those questions answered, I went back to once again combing through the budget documents during the next 2 days in preparation for a meeting with all department directors and our CAO on Thursday afternoon, November 6th. I indicated both to senior staff and the library acting CEO in our meeting that I would be happy to see something in the 3 to 4 or even 5% range as increases in most lines of the budget. I was quite confident after my work that I'd found some areas that could be questioned and dollars that could be saved. But I will also say that some of the items that I questioned made absolutely no difference to the levy. We've all been there. We've all done that over the years where we think we've found some ways of saving money on the levy, and it just doesn't affect the levy at all. My line in this list, the low-hanging fruit sometimes just can't be picked off the budget tree. By the start of last week, November 11th, thanks to the diligent work of staff, our levy increase was down once again, this time to 5.36%. However, one of the questions that I asked that Thursday afternoon, that at that time I phrased as being an ethical question, regarded our end-of-year surplus from 2024 that we had just learned about recently at the official audit, at the completion of the audit. And it bothered me that we had $1 million plus surplus, and the relatively small amount, that $150,000 that we were applying to this year's budget as our normal practice was being put into this year's budget. The remainder was going into a contingency reserve. I know that some of you have also asked questions about this issue regarding the surplus that's left in past years. I recognize that much of that surplus was due to the interest on our investments, interest, of course, that is unknown from year to year. Yet still I asked staff about the possibility of establishing a taxpayer relief fund, sometimes referred to as a tax stabilization fund. In discussion with other mayors, both in Niagara and others whom I've met at other conferences and workshops, I've learned that many do this type of offsetting of the tax burden placed upon residents, especially in difficult years such as we are experiencing now in West Lincoln. As a result, I did use designated strong mayor powers, and I asked our clerk, of course, he reported to you last week. Some of you read your email. Some of you know this already. I've asked staff to investigate setting up such a fund whereby a percentage or an amount, as yet unnamed and undetermined, would be allocated to a taxpayer relief or tax levy stabilization fund to help us move through the next couple of years or so, or at least until such time as we start to see the growth that is coming our way eventually actually start to happen, where we have an increased amount of assessment growth to offset the rising costs of goods and services for our corporation. This report will come back to council for discussion and approval sometime in Q2 or Q3 of 2026. But additionally, I've asked that $100,000 of that same 2025 surplus be pulled from the contingency reserve for this specific purpose, that being to help reduce the burden of this year's tax levy on our residents during this most difficult time for so many people. I'm very proud of our staff and their diligent efforts in this 2026 budget. They really do understand the balance between protecting the financial well-being and overall financial sustainability of our municipality with the ability of our residents to pay. I'm pleased to now be able to turn this budget over to you, members of council, to, first of all, listen to the remarks and presentation by Director Repovs, to ask tonight your high-level questions, and then to spend the next period of time, up to 30 days if needed, to begin to do your own due diligence and to make amendments to this budget where you see fit. I'm extremely pleased to inform you that the starting place for this 2026 budget is now at 3.98% increase to the tax levy, inclusive of the hospital levy. I do, however, certainly hope that another 6 pairs of eyes on these budget details during the next period of time will result in you putting forth amendments that will make a positive difference for our residents. Thank you. I'm going to now call on Caitlin for her presentation. The clerk is going to give you your package. In that package, you will find the report, and you will also find a paper copy of the presentation that Caitlin's going to make shortly.
It's like Christmas.
Not a Christmas present, but it is a bit. It's off. That brought it down.
Because you used the rainy day fund, whatever you want to call it.
Whatever it's going to turn out to be, I pulled that this time.
You could have saved $100,000.
Okay. No, well, you can open it if you want, but what you are going to take with you, excuse me a minute, you can open it or not open it, but Caitlin is going to make this presentation shortly. That's your copy to take with you. If you want to follow along, you can follow along. If you like to do it online, it can be presented to you online. But this is so that if you want to make jot notes along the way, you have that to do so.
We already have it online.
And then it's ready for you. Okay. Pardon? Doesn't matter. Okay. So I was just asked if I want you to put it away. I don't want you to put it away, but I want you to keep the papers from rattling all over the place while Caitlin does her presentation. Thank you. Madam Director, your turn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for your opening remarks. This evening, Council is presented with the Township's proposed 2026 budget as an information item. This presentation is accompanied by a staff report and budget schedules that contain important information that are presented for Council's and the public's review. The budget is a forward-looking document where the annual operating budget outlines all planned revenues and costs of public services planned for the Township's operation in 2026. After all non-tax levy revenues are accounted for, the tax levy is used to balance the budget. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Madam Mayor for her steering and guidance through this process, and all of the senior leadership team members, including our Deputy Treasurer, Steve Emsley, for the work that they spent contributing to this budget. All department heads are present tonight if you have any questions regarding their specific budget areas. Okay, so we'll begin this evening with looking at some important background information regarding the 2026 budget, key aspects of the operating and capital budgets, the impact to the tax levy, and we will also look ahead to the 10-year capital plans and the impacts on our reserves. There are a few key changes to the 2026 budget process that I'd like to highlight. The first being that the 2026 budget process has been advanced by approximately 2 months, allowing the budget to be presented in November as opposed to the historical timing of seeing the budget in January or February. This is a noteworthy achievement for the township, and it required strong coordination, planning, and communication for all departments in order for this advancement to happen. Another significant change to the budget process was transitioning to the province's Strong Mayor's Powers legislation. This shift follows the announcements where extension of Strong Mayor powers to the township was made effective May 1st, 2025. A Strong Mayor directive was issued to direct the 2026 budget process to township administration to prepare a 2026 budget for consideration. And issuing that direction was necessary to formally delegate the budget presentation back to staff. Finally, the 2025 budget process, through the 2025 budget process, administration received feedback on bringing forward the budget engagement survey earlier in the process. So in response to that, the 2026 budget survey was released and launched several months earlier than in the past, and that was to allow stakeholders more time to share their feedback on the 2026 budget. Detailed findings of the 2026 budget survey were presented back in September through staff report T14-2025. This slide here provides the 2026 budget schedule that was approved by council at the September Corporate Service Committee meeting. So we are here at the very first date of November 17th where the 2026 budget is being presented. Immediately following tonight will begin the start of the council amendment period, whereby council can make amendments to the proposed budget that they are seeing tonight. A specific budget amendment form will be shared with members of council in order to document their proposed budget amendments. And administration will be available from now until then to be able to answer questions of council. And the 30 business day period will conclude on December 31st. And that is also the deadline to submit budget amendments. The next budget meeting to discuss and deliberate the proposed budget amendments from members of council will be on Monday, January the 12th, with an additional date set on January 13th. And at that meeting, we will be looking at the budget amendment and the associated implications of each of those. And other pertinent dates that may follow from that are listed on the slide as a reminder. In preparing the 2026 budget, administration was very cognizant to ensure that reserve contributions and withdrawals were aligned with the township's reserve policy. And where possible, to ensure that there is sufficient funds available to address the requirements of the 10-year capital plan. It's important to note that administration not only takes into account the 2026 projects plan, but also looks ahead into the future in determining reserve contributions needed. Another important item to remember is that Ontario legislation requires that municipalities must have a balanced budget, which means that all expenditures must have a funding source. Ontario municipalities are not permitted to run a budget deficit. Another important note is that administration did make concerted effort to keep operating expenditure lines under the rate of inflation wherever possible. And as of September 2025, the average inflation rate was 2.4%. The preparation of the budget does take into account the township's corporate strategic plan themes, which are outlined on the slide here, the 4 themes. This slide demonstrates how the operating and capital budgets work together. Although these two budgets, they are distinct, they are very much linked and work together, as this slide demonstrates, and I will explain. And it's important to remember that as we're producing and working towards a balanced budget, it means that for every expenditure, we must have a way to pay for it. So the operating budget looks at the township's day-to-day costs of operating and delivering services. These include salaries and benefits for staff, repairs and maintenance costs to maintain assets in good working condition, and facility utilities, to name a few. In addition, the operating levy provides funding for capital and special projects through reserve contributions and also through debt repayments, as these are treated as operating expenditures in the operating budget. In order to pay for these items, the township must have an operating budget that is funded through a mixture of revenue streams, such as property taxes being the main source, along with grants, user fees, and other revenue. The capital budget, on the other hand, outlines the township's plans for long-term investments in tangible capital assets. So those are items that provide benefits beyond more than 1 year, such as the purchase of a new fire truck or the rehabilitation of a road. This budget also provides for special projects that the township wishes to partake in, such as significant operating initiatives that are generally one-time in nature, such as software implementations or master plans. In order to pay for these expenditures, the capital budget is funded by grants and user fees such as development charges. The most significant revenue source for a capital budget is generally reserve transfers and debt, and both of which are funded by the operating budget. So as you can see here, that ties in the connection between the operating and capital budgets. Another important item to note is that when it's a growth-related project, if debt is taken on for that project, it can be funded through development charges. Okay. So we've talked a little bit about the levy-funded budget and some key principles around that. I'd like to just highlight that included within the budget that you are seeing tonight, there are also the rate-supported budgets for building, water, wastewater, and urban sidewalks and streetlights. In these areas, it is important to remember that they are self-funded, which means that the revenue must cover the expenditures in these service areas. And it also means that there's no levy support going towards these areas. Any surplus or deficits seen within these areas at year-end are contained within those areas, and again, not offset by the levy. This slide here, as council is aware or maybe familiar with, is the demonstration of how the 2025 property tax bill is outlined. So of the total tax bill that is sent out to township residents, West Lincoln retains approximately 32% of that, whereas the region would take in 57%, and then 10.8% goes to the education or the province. These percentages have not changed significantly year over year. And at the time of this budget presentation, the 2026 tax rates for both the region and the province for education purposes have not yet been set. Looking back at the 2025 year, this slide breaks down the 2025 tax bill received by service area. So this would be a tax bill for an average homeowner within West Lincoln. This breakdown is included in a tax bill insert that is sent out each June with the final tax bill that the township sends out. The blue area here represents the service areas of the region. The green area focuses on the services provided by the Township of West Lincoln. And the red item at the bottom is the portion that goes to education. As you can see, the most significant portion of the tax bill goes to police services for the region, followed by education, which goes to the province. Now we will discuss some key factors that specifically have an impact on the 2026 budget for the township. The first is regarding assessment growth. So assessment growth represents new assessment that is brought on the tax roll from new builds, improvements, or additions. So the impact of the levy increase on taxpayers is lessened by assessment growth. In 2026, the estimated assessment growth is 1.15%, which is a result of new assessment that is seen within both the industrial and the residential assessment bases. This translates to being that the first $117,534 of the increase in the overall tax levy actually has no impact to property owners. And I would just like to highlight that as of right now, this is an estimate. In past years, because of the timing of the budget delivery, administration has known the exact assessment growth that is happening for the upcoming year because of the timing of when the assessment roll is received by MPACT. However, this is the most current information available at this time. The assessment roll for 2026 is planned to be delivered by MPACT to the township by December 9th, 2025. And just to provide some history of past assessment growth that the township has seen, in 2025, our assessment growth was 1.01%. In 2024, it was 0.36%, and in 2023, it was 1.88%. Now to discuss what a 1% change in the tax levy looks like, which translates to $102,551 is 1% change in the tax levy. If there was a change to the tax levy of either 1% increase or 1% decrease, that would translate to a $17 change in the West Lincoln portion of the taxes for an average homeowner. And throughout this presentation, we will use an average value of a residential home, which based on MPACT's valuations is $390,400. And at the time of delivering this presentation, the province has provided no additional information on when the next assessment cycle will be completed. So as of right now, that value that I just mentioned is reflective of 2016 property values. Okay, so we'll start with reviewing the operating budget. This slide here presents an overview of the 2026 expenditures organized by the different spending categories. As you can see, the largest proportion of the expenditures is allocated towards wages and benefits of approximately 44%. This slide here provides you information on the 2026 gross expenditures organized by each department service areas. It also includes our rate-funded areas of water, wastewater, and building. Just one item to note, as it is outlined in the staff report, but just to highlight it here. The corporate management functions, which include Office of the CAO, Legal and Legislative Services, and Corporate Services, have been restructured from a previously consolidated presentation into individual subfunctions effective the 2026 budget. So you'll just notice this change when viewing Schedule B in the staff report. And then this change was made in order to provide more precise financial reporting and improved accountability for each applicable department head. This slide here showed you the total operating budget and the different funding sources. As you can see, the large majority of the operating budget is funded through property taxes, approximately 51% of that. And the property taxes value that's presented here not only includes the levy, but it also includes our payment in lieu as well. However, if we and the previous slide did show you the revenue when the rate-funded service areas are included, such as water and wastewater. When we are looking specifically at the tax-supported budget and how that is being paid for, you can see that as on a proportionate basis, 70% of the operating budget is funded through property taxes, so a much larger percentage. Okay, now we're going to dive into the major pressures that are impacting the 2026 budget. I will then follow this up with how administration has provided recommendations to mitigate these pressures. And the pressures have been organized into different categories. So the first we'll start with is our investment in infrastructure. One of the main pressures on the 2026 budget is the required reserve increases to fund our capital and special projects within our 10-year capital plan. So there is a total increase of $349,150 required, which translates to a levy impact of 3.4%. So these increases are critical in order to ensure that we have sufficient funding available to be able to complete the projects in the 10-year plan. It is important to note that the reserve contributions made in the 2026 budget not only support projects in 2026, but also help fund capital projects planned for the township's future. Building up adequate funds in township reserves takes time to ensure that both short and long-term capital needs of the township can be fully supported. I would just like to remind council that if there is a desire to defer a levy-funded reserve and reserve-funded capital project by just 1 year, that typically does not have an impact on the recommended reserve contribution needed in the 2026 budget, because a simple deferral of 1 year ultimately doesn't change the total amount of funding needed from the accumulated in the reserve. Instead, it's just shifting when the timing of funds is needed to be drawn from the reserve. So therefore, the recommended contributions typically remain consistent, and that's needed to ensure that the financial health and readiness of the reserve is being met. Okay. Next item regarding pressures on the 2026 budget is regarding investments in township staffing. The first item here is regarding the cost of living adjustments. So included in the 2026 budget, there is a cost of living adjustment of 2.9%, which aligns with the negotiated rate within the township's collective agreement. Okay. Next item is regarding the non-union grid implementation for non-union staff. In 2026, the budget impact is $175,900, or a levy impact of 1.72%. So back in 2020, council approved a project to conduct a pay equity or market equity non-union compensation review. The 2022 budget was the first year of this implementation, where there was a funding strategy of reserves from the contingency reserve, or transfers from the contingency reserve and the tax levy in order to implement this non-union grid implementation over in total a 7-year period. 2026 marks the 5th year of implementation, and when we'll see the positions move to the next step on the 6-step grid. So the 2026 impact is the levy impact for this 5th year of implementation. And this slide here shows you just some further information on the remaining years within the implementation. So in 2026 and 2027, the plan will require transfers from the contingency reserve of $240,000. Just in 2026, the transfer from the contingency reserve is $150,000. And by 2028, we will have the implementation fully funded through the tax base. Next, we'll just discuss some staffing level enhancements proposed for the 2026 budget and those impacts on the levy. Further information regarding these requests can be found in Schedule H to the staff report. And I would just like to point out that the Supervisor of Regulatory Compliance position is funded fully through the water and wastewater rates, so there is no levy impact. Information on that position is included within Schedule H. Further, the municipal election assistance role is funded through a transfer from the election reserve, so there is no impact on the levy specific to that position, and so that is why it's not presented here as well. So first, the fire administrative assistant role. Administration is proposing to increase that role to a full-time complement. The budget impact for 2026 would be $36,000 or a 0.35% increase to the levy. Secondly, the IT help desk analyst role is proposed by staff to increase to a full-time complement. The levy impact is 0.11% or $11,000. Next is the customer service administrative assistant role. Administration again is requesting that role be converted to a full-time complement, with the levy impact being 0.36% or $36,620. Last item regarding investment in staffing that we would like to discuss is regarding the loss of developer contribution related to the planning department position. So as council may remember, this position was approved and the funding regarding it was approved through the 2023 budget. Unfortunately, the funding source from the developer contribution is no longer available, and administration has been looking at ways to bring the lost contribution onto the levy. So for the current budget year, there is still $60,000 that still remains to be funded. For the 2026 budget, administration is recommending that $30,000 of this amount is moved on to the levy, with the remaining $30,000 being funded through the planning reserve. Administration intends to fund this remaining amount through implementation of the new planning and development engineering fees, as was discussed earlier this evening. And that is planned to take place in early 2026, with a plan to have that position and other items funded through the fee review. Next, we will move on to some contractual obligations and general inflation pressure items. The first being general expenditure inflation increases of approximately $98,000 for the 2026 budget, or a 0.96% levy impact. As mentioned earlier this evening, administration has worked very hard to keep as many expenditure lines under the rate of inflation as possible, and in some cases there were no increases to expenditures made. One area that has seen an increase needed beyond the rate of inflation is related to the OLT defense cost expenditures. Budget impact in 2026 would be an increase of $20,000 or a 0.2% increase to the levy. This would allow the total budget to be increased to a full amount of $50,000. Next is regarding the new Fire Station 2 and some increased facility operating costs. With the new fire station facility opening in 2024, the operating impacts of the new facility are now known. These costs include increased increased costs with respect to internet, facilities and land improvement maintenance, insurance, and utility costs. The impact in 2026's budget is $24,500, or 0.24% increase. Next, we have an increase seen in road infrastructure maintenance and operating costs increases of $64,500, or a 0.63% increase to the levy. And this includes some rising costs seen within winter controls, salt and sand purchases, gravel road dust control, hot mix repairs, and street sweeping costs. Last item on this slide is just with respect to the election reserve. Administration is requesting that there's an increase to the election reserve, and that is needed in order to fund the township elections that take place every 4 years, and making sure that the township has appropriate costs being saved up for those. The total cost of the 2026 election is budgeted at $195,170, and that's not inclusive of the reserve transfer within the 2026 budget. Okay. The 2026 budget includes costs related to some software investments, along with cybersecurity. Regarding software, this is in regard to the cost of the Microsoft 365 licenses for the township and library. Council approved the implementation of M365 in the 2025 budget, which was successfully implemented earlier this year. And the budget also includes investments within cybersecurity, which are intended to enhance and support West Lincoln's ability to proactively respond and mitigate risk of cybersecurity threats. And the total budget impact for those investments is $106,500, or a 1.04% levy impact. Okay. Next, we'll look specifically at service enhancements within the Recreation Department. The first being the 2026 budget proposing the addition of a full-time permanent special events coordinator. This position will provide capacity to the Recreation Department in order to plan, promote, and execute events that the community meets community expectations and council priorities. Further information on this role is included in Schedule H. The budget impact is $98,600, or a levy impact of 0.96%. And this role, as you'll see as we go through, is being mitigated by increased recreation user fees. Next, there are some increases proposed for our part-time Parks and Rec staff. The total budget impact is $24,500, or 0.24% increase in the levy. Administration has proposed some enhancements to both Canada Day and other recreation program events. For Canada Day, the levy impact is $19,400, and for the other recreation programming enhancements, which includes enhancements within youth and adult programs, summer camps, harvest routes, the Santa Claus Parade, and movies in the park, the total budget impact in 2026 is $30,300. And all of the above items here are mitigated by increases that administration has made to the recreation user fees of $118,000, or a reduction to the levy of 1.15%. And this is these increases in the fee revenue is based on administration's 2026 proposed fees increases, along with reviewing actual revenue trends and updating the budget accordingly. So overall, when looking at all these items together, the impact is $54,800, or a 0.53% increase to the levy. And we will conclude the operating budget pressures by looking at the mitigation, so items that are helping to decrease our levy impact. So the first being an increase in the tax stabilization pressures, as our mayor provided information on previously. This is a reduction to the 2026 budget by $100,000 or a 0.98% levy impact. Next, the township is fortunate to receive an increase in the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, OMPF grant, for the 2026 year. That increase is $117,800 over 2025, which would bring the total township funding amount to an amount of $1,350,700. And that's helped to reduce our levy by 1.15%. Next, administration has proposed an increase in the budgeted revenue for property tax penalty revenue, an increase of $10,000 over 2025. In addition to the recreation user fees, there are township-wide departmental user fee increases over 2025 of $34,570. Administration has increased a small amount within the budgeted investment income of $13,500. There is an increase proposed to the budgeted supplemental and the payment in lieu tax revenue, along with a decrease in tax write-offs proposed of $280. And finally, there's an increase for the corporate support allocation regarding those charged to rate-funded areas. Administration reviewed this area in conjunction with the building user fee review, where the consultant recommended updated corporate service program cost allocations to more accurately reflect service delivery costs to those rate-funded areas. And this has resulted in a budget mitigation of $440,000 or 4.29%. So all of these items together, looking at both the pressures and the mitigations, explains the overall tax levy increase over 2025 of $534,880. We'll now review the rate-supported areas of water and wastewater. So these items are fully funded through user fees, meaning that there's no support from the levy and that the users of those systems fully pay for those systems and the costs are fully recovered from them. So in 2026, the expenditure budgets for both water and wastewater total $5,793,660. The region makes up the majority of costs within these areas, so of $3,330,500 for the 2026 budget, or 57.5%. And in the past, administration has made concerted effort to keep the township rate increases below the region-approved rate increases. I would just like to highlight that. The 2026 budget that council is seeing tonight is based on the rates that were within the approved 2025 water and wastewater rate study financial plan that was presented and approved by council on October 20th, 2025. This slide here reflects the proposed water and wastewater rate changes to come into effect January 1st of each year. And the January 1st date is a change from the past practice of implementing rate increases as of July 1st. The January 1st effective date is a recommendation from the consultant that completed the rate study. Administration will be seeking approval of the specific rates, along with all other utility user fees, at the December all-committee meeting when the consolidated fee bylaw is brought forward. This slide here provides information to council on what the impact of the new and proposed rates would be to an average utility ratepayer that uses 40.25 cubic meters per quarter. So the quarterly bill is estimated to increase by $30.53 or 33 cents per day increase. And then the average impact in 2026 for the whole year would be $122.13 over 2025. Now we'll turn our attention to the Township's 2026 proposed capital budget, which also includes our special projects. So this slide here shows you the breakdown of the 2026 proposed capital and special projects, which are at a total investment of $4,510,700. You can see from this that the largest investment is within the transportation infrastructure area, where a total investment of $1.9 million or 42% is proposed, followed by the next largest investment being in environmental infrastructure of $1.7 million. This slide here shows you, again, the 2026 capital projects, just showing you a different view of looking at the projects by asset type. Finally, this slide here shows you the funding of the 2026 capital and special projects. As you can see, the majority of the projects in the 2026 year are being funded through township reserves of almost $2.8 million coming from the reserves to fund the 2026 capital plan. The next slides show you a breakdown by each department of the different capital and special projects by department. On this slide here, you will see that the projects have been broken down into 4 categories as information from council, and this is similar to what you will have remembered seeing in the past. The breakdowns include categories of rehabilitation renewal, whether it's a compliance-related project, a growth-related project, or a service improvement project. Schedule D of the staff report includes detailed breakdown of each of these different capital projects and their funding sources. So I won't go into detail on each of these items, as the CIO will be providing further information in his presentation following mine. The slide here shows the 2026 corporate and general government projects at a total cost of $103,500. This slide here shows you the fire service projects for 2026 proposed at $87,900. There are, in 2026, $85,000 in investments within the building services area. Transportation services proposes $1.9 million in 2026 projects. Environmental services is $1.733 million. With Parks and Recreation, a total investment of $398,200 is proposed. With library services, which was presented at last week's meeting, the total investment is proposed at $112,600. And last, our planning and development projects at a total investment of $85,000 for 2026. So now to review, now that we've looked at both the operating and the capital budget for 2026, we can now review what the impact of both of those budgets will look like to an average homeowner on their property taxes that they receive for the township. And tonight we will be looking only at the impact of the township portion of the tax bill, given that the region and the province's 2026 rates are not yet available. So currently, the 2026 proposed base budget requires a tax levy of $10,790,000, which represents a 4.07% or $888 levy increase over 2025. So the increase is over the 2025 base levy. The increase is $534,880. And that's after factoring in the estimated assessment growth of 1.15%. As mentioned earlier, for the 2026 budget, the assessment growth is valued at $117,534, or 1.15%. The hospital levy, as outlined in the staff report, is proposed at $206,000. This represents a $900 decrease from 2025, and that translates to a 55-cent decrease to an average homeowner. So when factoring in both the municipal base levy along with the hospital levy, and after the estimated assessment growth, the total proposed levy represents a 3.98% increase over 2025. So this estimated increase in the West Lincoln portion of the bill for an average homeowner in the non-urban area is $69.21 increase over 2025, or a $5.77 increase per month. Now we will discuss the urban service area levy. So this is a special levy collected within the urban service area of Smithville, and it funds the cost of streetlights and sidewalks, including sidewalk snow removal within this designated area. For 2026, the urban service area levy is proposed at $193,410. This is an increase over 2025's levy of $6,820. So this translates to an average homeowner would mean that in 2026 they are paying $74.41 for the year, which is an increase of $2.63 from 2025. Of note, the 2025 urban service area levy did remain unchanged from the 2024's levy. So the 2026 levy requirement that administration is proposing is to ensure that the levels of service can be adequately maintained and our costs are being appropriately covered. And then for those that are in the urban area of Smithville, looking at the township portion of the tax bill, an average resident could see a monthly increase of $5.99 per month. Just another item of information for council as it's presented in the staff report. Administration, under the direction of the corporate strategic plan, did look at a deliverable that was requested, which was to review the impact of collapsing the urban service area levy into the township's general base levy. And the information is within the report. But administration has made these calculations using the 2026 proposed levy figures and using an average residential assessment of $390,400. So looking at this, the impact to an average residential urban property owner, if the urban service area levy was collapsed, that would result in a reduction of taxes of $42.13 in 2026. On the other hand, the impact to an average residential rural property would mean that there would be an increase in taxes of $32.28 in 2026. And that's for information for council only. Okay, so we're going to end the presentation by looking at the township's 10-year capital plan, which covers the years 2026 to 2035, and we'll look also just at the proposed or projected reserve balances. So the 10-year plan proposes expenditures of a total of $158.6 million. And this slide here shows you that expenditure broken down over the 10-year period by asset type. And the details of the expenditures of the 10-year plan can be found on Schedule E within the staff report. This slide here shows you what the 10-year plan funding sources are. As you can see, the bulk of the 10-year plan, almost 53%, is proposed to be funded through township reserves along with debentures. So these two items, it's important to note that they are would be funded through property taxes or user fees if it's in the case of water and wastewater. The other largest chunk of funding is proposed to come through development charges. It is important to note that while development charges will fund a large portion of the 10-year plan, the township will likely not have the funds available upfront to be able to pay for those projects and will likely need to rely on front-ending agreements or debentures in order to move those projects forward in the absence of available DC reserve funds. And the details of the 10-year funding can be found in Schedule F of the budget package. This chart here indicates to Council the estimated ending balances within the capital reserve balances that are being supported by the levy. And this forecast is based on the reserve increase that's proposed through the 2026 budget. So any adjustment to those reserve increases would have an impact on this forecast that's presented in front of Council tonight. As you can see from what's here, overall, the township's tax-supported reserves should collectively stay in a positive balance as long as the capital reserve contributions required within each of the years is approved by Council. This chart here provides just a different visual to showcase to Council the estimated annual closing balances organized by each of the different reserves. So as you can see, based on the projection, the capital reserve is projected to be in a negative balance in years 2030 and 2031, with the fire reserve projected to be in a negative balance in the year 2027. But overall, in those years, the overall amount of township reserve balances is projected to be in a positive balance. And this chart here indicates to Council the estimated reserve transfers needed over the 10-year plan. So the estimated reserve transfers are shown in the blue bar chart, and then the increase to those reserves over the 10-year plan are shown in purple, followed by, in the brown line, this shows you the impact on the tax levy as a result of the proposed reserve contribution increases. Okay, so that concludes the information and presentation of the proposed 2026 budget. Administration is happy to answer any questions Council may have. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Caitlin, for that presentation. And not only for the presentation tonight, which I know also took time to put together, but also for all of the work you've done bringing it to this point. So we are going to take high-level questions, but Mr. CAO, did you want to put in your remarks first and then we'll go to questions, or the reverse?
Thank you, Mayor Gadan. And if it's okay with you, I thought what we could do just before we turn it back over to Council for questions is just to really drive home what is in this West Lincoln budget for yourselves and the people of West Lincoln, as we've done a lot of work this year to wrestle, as you said, a very difficult increase down to something that is manageable, that we think is fair for the people of West Lincoln, and at the same time delivering significant value. It's certainly not lost on your administration that we are in different economic times than certainly within my lifetime and many people's lifetime what we're dealing with today, the economic uncertainty is vast. There's changes to the macroeconomy, changes to the international trading system, and that's affecting us here at home in Niagara with the economy, uncertainty around jobs, and the pace that we thought development was going to be moving at. Certainly has slowed down. And when we look at what your capital program was looking like over the next 10 years, and when various expenditures were going to be being made, we needed to make some adjustments, knowing that that growth is going to be delayed a year or two or perhaps longer as we wait for the economy to reconcile itself and hopefully come back to that free trading system that we've all been used to and benefited from with that kind of certainty. So we've taken a longer view to this budget. And made those decisions about ironing out that capital plan, moving things that were more growth-related further down the forecast in order to reduce the impact of the levy for this fiscal year coming up. We've also, under the direction of Mayor Ganan, brought in a short-term strategy to shield ratepayers further from some of the increases that we're looking at this year. And a bulk of this budget looks at focusing on how can we develop and really refine West Lincoln's competitive advantage to be able to tell our story, to be working with our industry, to be working with our partners across the municipality in agriculture, industry, and business, and making sure that this is a great place and continues to be to live, work, and play. I mentioned economic development, and as Council likely remembers, there was a series of economic development roundtables that administration held with the agricultural sector, the industrial sector, and our business community in September and October. This budget actions the recommendations that you received as part of that report that administration brought to you in October. There is funding to begin the online service delivery in buildings and bylaw. That's something that has been asked for by industry, something that we will see efficiencies in delivering service and speeding up permit times for applicants as they're requesting move forward with their projects. There's funding in here for partnership development across the agricultural sector as we work to mirror what some of our counterparts have done in different municipalities in building agricultural committees to help us with policy and planning in the rural area, and also evolving and trying to better tell the West Lincoln story through refining that competitive advantage. So we'll be working throughout this year in trying to position West Lincoln so when the growth does come back, the economy returns, we're ready to hit that with all cylinders firing and move West Lincoln forward. Information technology is one of the strategic levers that we're looking at to modernize the administration and how we do business. This is about putting reduction and cost suppression measures around the need to hire more staff by seeing what can we do with technology, how can we automate service delivery, what can we look at through AI. This was something that was funded by Council with their foresight in 2025. That work's going to be completing itself in early 2026. And these are all things that we're looking to move forward with. That includes a review of the technology that we have, the hardware standards that we're using, including what Council is using, and how we're supporting you in our meetings. One of the tasks that Council had asked me to look at upon starting at West Lincoln was really looking at how do we activate the West Lincoln Community Association and how do we really start looking at knocking events in West Lincoln out of the park. What we've done over the course of this year in bringing Ms. Summers online with us in the new director position that was created was looking at the funding model and how are we delivering recreation services in West Lincoln? How do we reduce the costs of operating the West Lincoln Community Center? And how do we find a model where recreation services begin to pay for itself better? This budget delivers in that regard. You heard from Ms. Repovs in her presentation about how we were increasing recreation user fees to completely offset the events coordinator that we're proposing that is not only going to help us with events, but is also going to be our go-to resource when it comes to going after those grants. Regularly, we're stretched right now to chase all of the multitude of grants that are out there. With this position that is completely fee covered, not on the levy, we're going to be able to do things that we were not able to do before, and with any luck, actually deliver that farmers market, a true farmers market, that we have been gunning for over the past number of years. There's going to be further work in looking at how do we implement the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. We're looking at external partnerships to improve our summer camps and service delivery in that regard, and through revenue sharing that you'll hear at a council meeting coming soon about what we can do over March break this year, or 2026 rather, that's been different in years past. Finally, one of the things that we've heard from council and the community that's well sought after right now is a new dog park. Now, given the multitude of pressures that this budget has been facing, we're not proposing the development of a new dog park this year, but we are wanting to begin that conversation with the community about where the right spot for this would be, what kind of amenities that we would be looking for in there. We'd bring a report back to council, and in future budgets, we'd be looking to advance that particular project. It is included, though, in the deferred list of projects. So if council does wish to advance that within this year, we do have a strategy on hand to move that project for you as well. This is just a quick summary of some of the major capital projects that this project is advancing and delivering for West Lincoln. The 20 road resurfacing from Range Road 2 to South Grimsby Road 8, Dufferin Street reconstruction, the water main replacement, the Skyway Road sanitary sewer replacement, and the Davis Creek Bridge, just to name a few. In planning for the future, and this is what we were talking about before, about knowing the growth is coming, but it's not coming as soon as we thought it was. So this has let us defer a number of those capital projects out that were putting pressure on the levy this year. That's where Mayor Ganan came in, and when you heard initially we were coming in at 16%, then 12%, and we were able to whittle those down by ironing through and taking the slack out of that capital budget by better aligning projects with when the growth was going to be experienced in West Lincoln. So what we're proposing to do in the interim, rather than sitting idle, we're going to be beginning the process of kicking off the new official plan process, which is talking about where is the community going to be going over the next 20 to 30 years, what is the look and feel. These are the conversations about the future of West Lincoln that is the right time to be having them as we're in this lull, knowing the growth is coming, so when the growth does come, we're able to get that right. One of the projects that's beneath the official plan and doesn't always get as much airtime as it doesn't tend to be as interesting, unless maybe you're an engineer, is the engineering and development standards. These are the nuts and bolts of how wide are the roads, how wide are the sidewalks, and it really comes together with how does your community end up being delivered and what does it look like after development comes in. We want to make sure that this design is in keeping with where the community's vision of what West Lincoln's going to look like in the future, but also making sure council's comfortable with how this infrastructure is going to be going in. The width of the infrastructure, the width of your sidewalks, the trails, the roads, the boulevards, these are all things that add and affect operating costs of the municipality in the future. So while we're waiting for the growth, this is the right time to be having these conversations with yourselves and the community about what that future look and feel of West Lincoln is going to be. Now, we talked about the staffing positions, and I wanted to circle back to that just briefly, and then I believe this is my last slide. There are no new levy-funded positions, no new headcounts being proposed in this budget. We know it is a difficult year, and that is why the new position that we're looking at this year is funded through rates and fees for user pay, as opposed to being put onto the levy. So while there are no new headcounts being proposed, we are making a request for council to close these holes in service delivery that we've all looked at and uncovered over the course of 2025. And those are three specific positions that we're hoping for some council assistance to help us resolve. As to differing degrees, they are causing an extent of administrative chaos as we attempt to deliver service with part-time resources in place. We recognize for council these tend to be more difficult positions to fund. They're not always as well understood in the community as to why they're needed, but these positions are the knitting that keep the organization together, service running smoothly, and information flowing up to the senior leadership team and to council in this chamber. So the first one is the reception and the corporate services AA. There's a tremendous volume of work that happens in corporate services. We're still working to climb on top of that, and council graciously provided resources in this budget year to help us advance that model. We do, though, need to move that reception administrative assistant to a full-time role. The nice thing that will come out of this that the community is going to see is it's the evolution of the customer service model itself at West Lincoln. What we're going to be able to do if we make this position full-time is make sure that wherever residents come in, be it to the West Lincoln Community Center or to the Town Hall, you're going to be able to receive the same service. The permits, insurance, anything that you would come to the town hall for, you can get at the West Lincoln Community Center. And the idea being that even on the weekends, we're going to have customer service staff over there able to deliver this service. So while this is a small change, the impact to the community we think is going to be significant. The fire administrative assistant is another badly needed position that needs to be converted to full-time. There's been increasing regulation in emergency services management and fire service delivery that has been downloaded from the province. We are beginning to fall behind in this regard. This was a position, I believe, in the 2017 Fire Master Plan that was recommended to go full-time. It's still not there. While the growth isn't here yet, we're straining, trying to keep up with the administration of fire services as it is. It will also allow us to bridge into that permit revenue that Council asked about earlier this evening by having a resource that's able to deliver that. Finally, another key one, especially in the success that we hope to have in implementing the IT master plan and the AI strategy, is bringing the IT technician role to a full-time position, which is going to help us catch up with help desk requests. We are having moments right now where there are work stoppages because of technology issues. We simply don't have the resources to get to everything at once. This is a badly needed improvement, and this will go a long way, the three of them together, in improving service delivery in West Lincoln. Finally, this is the last slide, is the introduction of the tax stabilization reserve. We know that these are difficult economic times, and underneath the guidance and leadership of Mayor Ganan, this budget is introducing a tax stabilization reserve, and we're using $100,000 of that to offset the increase going into 2026, lowering the percent that our citizens in West Lincoln need to pay by 1%. There will be a corresponding policy coming forward to this council for your review prior to the end of Q2, and that will govern how much of a surplus from year to year gets transferred into the tax stabilization reserve so that council can consider the amount and the necessity of stabilizing taxes in any future given years. Those are the highlights of your budget. We're happy to take any questions that you may have of us this evening. We will, of course, be available through the next 30-day period as you go through the amendments, and happy to set up any one-on-one meetings with councillors to walk through the budget, help support you in the crafting of your amendments. However that looks, this administration is here to serve you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much for your input. So this is your time, members of council, for sort of high-level questions. Something in the report that you're wondering about, something that you heard either our CAO or our Director of Finance mention. This is not the time to get into, can we cut this and can we cut that? Those are your amendments, and you'll have plenty of time to do that. So think about the kinds of things that sort of formed and came to the top of your head as you were listening, and those are the things we're going to take now. So I'll start with you, Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to thank the Director and the CAO for the presentation. It was very well done, very detailed, and the explanations were extremely helpful, and I thank you for that. But my question goes back to the Mayor's original presentation. I believe you said there was $1 million carry forward from last year, of which $150,000 was used for something, and that left $850,000 left, of which you took $100,000 to put into this new tax stabilization thing. Did the rest of it go into the contingency reserve?
Yes.
So my question is, how come you didn't take a little bit more, like maybe 200,000 out? Since it was like 800,000, you took a very small percentage. Why not 20% or 30% instead of like 10%?
Well, there's a really good answer to that, and that is, if we took too big a chunk this year, the expectation might be that we could always do the same. But we happen to have some really good investment income that came forward, and we received that report just a short while ago, where we knew that we had over $1 million. Most of it was investment income. So I thought if we took a portion of that this year, and then had a policy that determines what we can do with that moving forward, based on whatever the reserve is, that it would be a safer move.
I understand what you're saying, but also we don't know what the future predicts, but we know we've got a pretty good chunk right now, so it would be nice to put a good amount down to make sure we've got a little cushion in case next year it doesn't look as rosy. Boy, I'm glad I put a little extra in the year before and we had it. When times are good, you do it. When times are bad, you don't. And right now, it looks like times are good, but we didn't put much in. So that will be one of my questions coming up in 30 days, but anyways,
Well-
thank you. What was that 150,000, by the way?
That was the amount that we agreed that routinely goes into this budget. So when do you remember the meeting? Just a short while ago, October, I think even, where we finally heard when the audit statement was finished, we heard how much money we had. And last year, we put $150,000 from the previous one as well. So it's always about how much. And I did check back. I knew that it wasn't always 150, but it was raised a few years ago from 125, and probably that was raised from 100 years ago. So gradually, we've always taken some of that and put it forward. The rest goes in a contingency reserve, which means you can pull it forward. But I didn't want to be able to pull something out of a contingency reserve. I want something that's going to be an ongoing thing that just says, when we're going through these kinds of times, we have this extra pot of money based on whatever surplus money has been in the past that we can pull forward. So keep that in mind, because if next year we have to do it, I'll have to find another way to find another savings, because once the policy's
That's
set,
my only
I
question.
might not be able to change it again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other? Councillor
should we
Riley?
just
Do
take
you want
it?
to just go in order?
Yeah.
Okay, if Councillor Chichok has something, that's fine with me.
Thank you very much for your leadership, work, and guidance, Madam Mayor. This is new territory we're all going into, and I'm glad that you left some things for us to make very hard decisions about opportunities to submit changes that will then have to be voted on by all of us. If you made it that easy, we might have to go home and watch U.S. sports or something. I find it unusual. I mean, I find it wonderfully fulfilling that tonight we're receiving the 2026 budget on the very same night that the federal budget was for 2025 was passed by a very slim majority. So you're ahead of time. But having said that, the rainy day reserve or the rate stabilization reserve was something that we talked about a long time ago, and it certainly is something that we need to bring back and have it installed this year. The parameters around it are probably for council, because in any corporation, it's a board governed reserve. It's not for staff to dip into. It's something we all sit and vote on, because every dollar we put in or take out is going to have to be thought through. And I'm very happy that we're doing and talking about it. It's something that, as we move forward, and it may take us 5 years to get to any sufficiently large enough assessment growth to be able to say, now the new people are giving us their taxes, which we still have to put part of into a reserve, because their roads, sidewalks, lights, water mains, and sewer mains are all going to need replacement someday, and that's where we get the increases to our reserves. So there's no end to this needing to be doing it. And I hope that we're not all waiting for a reassessment to bring good news to this community, because reassessment doesn't do anything if everything goes up the same percentage. The split will still be there. And I want to say that because everybody keeps talking about when the reassessment from 2016 comes into play, and that is going to be a very hard day. Because the most impacted shifts that are not going to be between classes are going to be for properties that have not been reassessed and they're brand new. And those people are not paying their fair share now, but they're going to get back assessments for all the years where that didn't come in. And that's going to be a very hard thing for young families that bought houses anywhere after 2016 and are still paying taxes based on the land or partially constructed value of their home. And I looked to the Director of Finance, but that just struck me as we were looking at this and thinking reassessment. Reassessment isn't going to make us richer. It's just going to say, who are we going to take it from? And that worries me. So it's not a day of happiness. It's a day of watching whether new businesses are going to pay more or new housing is going to pay more, and that's scary. I will look at the fact that some of these positions, and I think and I herald the bravery that's been there for shifting a lot of this onto rates for our community. Rates are in addition to taxes. It's not a freewheeling thing. So while we say that our tax rate is amongst those that are even, or whatever, or that our assessed values are reasonable, those tax shifts for costs of whether it's a person or whatever may come to a very difficult discussion for this tax year, because it says that kids that could be in hockey are going to pay more. Kids that could be in volleyball or day camps are going to pay more. And when I look at the lineups, it scared me when we looked at $10,000 more a year that is going to come from tax arrears. And I look at the lineups, or at least what I'm being told by our community care, at how many people are now accessing the community care, regardless of their income. It only says that we are burdening people who are already stressed. So I am looking at this budget without a smile on my face, because while it does all the things that we asked you to do, and while it does it well, and your work has been conscientious and brought us into an acceptable increase within affordability range, there is all of those pressures that I don't need to repeat, because our CAO has said it, you have said it, everyone said it. This is still going to be a task that needs to be reviewed so that we can not feel proud of it, but that we can feel that we can live with this until there's additional assessment in our town to pay for the additional services. And I don't think that we can look at services that are new to this community. And I will be looking very carefully at every one of the ads, whether it's a rate supported or it's a tax supported, because you people look weary, but there are people out there that are weary just trying to put food on the table. So I say that because this is a very serious thing. We'll take it very seriously, and I know you have. I know you as staff have. I appreciate all of you. But you've just awakened me for about the next 30 days. Thank you. Oh, I had a question.
Go ahead.
No, I'll say it later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Riley.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I guess, I certainly looking forward to dealing, what's this gonna be, my 7th budget here, and this is gonna be a little bit different than how we've done budgets before, so I'm very curious to see how this all plays out in the next 30 days. I guess my question to you, to our Director of Finance, it's more of a clarity seeking question here in terms of when you talked about the collapsing of the urban service tax. I realize that's not going to be something in here, nor something we're going to debate tonight, but I was wondering what is the proper, like you just highlighted that outside of that. That's actually not in our information package, not at least what I have here. So I was wondering if you could maybe provide a little bit of clarity of what you would require to bring that to the table in the future to have a broader conversation.
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Riley. So thank you for your question. So the information, it wasn't in the budget presentation, in the PowerPoint I presented earlier, but it is in the staff report on page, beginning of page, or end of page 6, going into page 7.
This page, or this report?
Yes, in the staff report,
so I
yes.
haven't dug into that one yet.
Yes.
Okay.
So this was just presented as an information item for council, just to meet the requirements of the corporate strategic plan, the specific deliverables requested of administration. If it was the will of council to look at this item further, I will defer to the clerk just for clarification, but I believe that we would need a referral motion back to administration to look at it further if a specific report was requested on the item.
Okay, you see nodding heads. Okay, so I appreciate that. I just want to make sure, just as we kind of go through this, I know you mentioned about sending our amendments as we try to fill out the other booklet that we have here. Got a third booklet here, and as we go through this new process, I'll make sure that's not lost, because this is the first time in probably about 5 years that that tax has actually gone the wrong way, and that's up. We've made an effort, as long as I've been on council, I've made an effort to bring that down with the goal of eliminating it, not seeing it increase. So anyways, I just wanted that clarification. I guess I think that's it, because my other questions actually are more in debate, so I'll save that for the appropriate time.
Thank you. Councillor Trombetta?
You have stumbled on my name there a little
No, I didn't.
bit? You've known me a long time, surprised.
No, I did not.
So, looking at this budget that's presented, I believe I don't know, how can I put it this year? This is a steak with still some fat around it that needs to be trimmed, in my opinion. Not, a lot of people like steak with fat. I like it off. Well, everybody's different. That's how I like my steak when I go it. I don't like to eat the fat, but some people do. So I think there's ways of trimming some of the fat on there. I have thoughts as it was coming across, and I see things that can happen. But my question is to you, Madam Mayor, since this is the mayor's budget, it's called, so I have to direct questions to you. We have 30 days to review it. We come back, and then the fat pieces I want off, I come pretty much tell you what I want off.
No. So what
So
will
it's not-
happen,
okay,
what will
thank
happen,
you.
Jess, we did talk about this way back, but I know there's been a lot of water under
Yes,
the
please.
bridge since then. And I know that the clerk will speak about that as well. So I have had, for the last 2 weeks, this budget, I've had my opportunity to ask questions, make changes, think about what I wanted to do, get my questions answered, by the way, as well. Found a few things, and now I'm done, so to speak, with this budget. So I have now presented to you the budget, and I have left room, obviously, and staff have left room, and there were some indicators there of places where you can look. The 30 days that you have is your opportunity to present in writing those suggestions that you have. If you wait to come back to the next meeting, you're too late. So what you're going to do between now and the end of December, and inside your envelope,
Okay.
I think you will
I
find.
didn't go through the package
Yeah,
yet,
you'll
that's
find
what's
some
been-
forms there. So on those forms, and that was the thing that our CAO was alluding to. If you want to, question some things, run some wording by, the clerk will help, our CAO will help, directors will help if there's something specific. And you are going to send those amendments to the clerk's office.
After the 30 days or before the 30 days?
Within the 30
Within the
days.
30 days,
Within
okay.
the 30 days, before the office is closed. So, but you could still send by email. If they arrive, within that time frame, they'll still be dealt with when the office opens up again
And that
after
date's the
Christmas.
23rd, I would imagine?
So,
31st, okay.
so in any case, you have a full 30 days. Now, if perchance, you are all finished in 2 weeks, you could still have the opportunity to bring that forward to our December meeting and say, we don't need 30 days, if that were the case. I'm not saying it should be. I fully gave you 30 days, which is the most allowed under the legislation, and I'm glad to have you have that. But if perchance you wanted it to be discussed earlier, we can move that date. We have some flexibility, and it could be done before Christmas. An example of that was a recent Niagara municipality, unnamed at this time, didn't require more than 2 weeks, and they were done. I see in the newspaper that Grimsby's allowing 10 business days. So there was some flexibility there. The maximum is 30 days.
So then,
So-
once I submit those comments, again, through me this process.
Right,
This piece of fat, I don't like, this piece of fat, I don't like,
Abs-
I submit those comments to the clerk.
exactly.
You have the power now to say,
No.
hold on,
no.
that's why I'm asking.
I have no
Let her
more,
answer,
I have
just
no
let me-
more power.
So once I submit those comments, then what happens after those
Okay,
comments?
so then the clerk's office will look at those, and if you submit the same thing that Councillor Maychak and perhaps Councillor Riley also, he'll condense those. Those resolutions, those amendments to this budget will come at that meeting. And that's when Councillor Bradrick will become our budget chair. She will
Okay.
sit here. I will sit out there. I'm done at that point in
Okay.
time while those amendments are debated. If they pass, they become part of the budget. If they fail and they aren't part of the budget. At the end, and that's why there are 2 nights, at the end of that process, when all of those amendments have been looked at, if we need a second night, or if you need a second night, it's there. If you don't need it, at the end of that, we have a budget.
Okay. So if there's 6 different,
There could be 6, there could be 10. The last I heard of, there were 8. One before that has recently finished, I heard there were 12. So, now, I didn't hear that 12 passed, but there were
Okay.
12 amendments that came for debate. So that is your opportunity to do everything we've always done in the past. It's
and again,
it
just
has to
because
be
this
in
process
writing.
is different, will we have from the Director of Finance, once those are submitted, those amendments, where it lowers the levy?
Well, you will know that night if it has any effect. When you're having your debate, you will have the opportunity to say, okay, within this debate, you can say, I brought this forward, and I'm wondering if that's going to have any effect on the levy. And you'll
Okay.
be told then, and before you vote on it. If it's
Okay.
not going to affect the levy, maybe you'll turn it down. If it is going to affect the levy, maybe you'll all vote for it.
Okay,
but the majority rules on those amendments.
thank you for those
Does
questions.
that
Yeah, no,
make sense?
it's a
But
different
any-
process, right?
It's
I'm
very
so-
different.
I'm
and
used to the
it's-
A, B, and C
and
process
it's
that
n-
we've been doing
it's-
for 12 years,
It's
right?
new to all of us, but it is what is being used everywhere now, so.
Okay, thank you.
But at any time, if you want another explanation or
I can
discussion,
come in at
I'm
any time
happy
into
to
the
do that
office,
too.
I know that.
Yeah. I'll call you into my office.
I know,
Or you can-
I've been there many times
Or
before.
you can ask to come.
Thank you.
Okay. Counselor Bradford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Kudos to administration. Thought-out presentation, very informative. Thank you. I have a question through you to the administration. Is there any outstanding possibilities of revenue that have not yet come forward to the township confirmation that maybe there are some things that are lingering out there that may affect it positively as far as a decrease to the levy?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Bradrick. So I will start with my knowledge. So at this current time, there are a few grant applications that the township has submitted. And we do not yet know the results of those, but those grant applications are related to projects that are within the township's 10-year plans. If the township, so at this current time, unfortunately, we aren't aware of the status. So, and those projects are proposed through the 10-year plan. So they are presented as they are through funding through reserves. However, if the grant applications were successful, depending on the timing of that, we would be looking at a budget amendment to reflect that grant. And I'll pass it off to the rest of administration if they are aware of any other items or if they'd like to expand further on the grant applications I'm referring to.
Okay.
So I will just add to that, that additionally, we have some ideas about delegations moving forward on sort of advocating in advance for some of the capital projects that we're looking at moving down the road. So those things. And our delegation request for Roma in January just went in today, so.
Very good. I guess just a quick comment in regards to, we're all very focused on lowering the levy, and that is, paramount as we contemplate what has been presented to us tonight. But also just a clarity that if we saw something that was missing from this budget, that also would be an amendment. Am I correct?
Amendments are amendments.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Councillor Maychap.
Through you, Madam Mayor, first of all, I want to say excellent presentations to both Caitlin and Trooper. And having sat on the other side, the staff side, for 35 years, we struggled with budgets to try to keep them low. And our goal was status quo. And what I've been so impressed by staff is, under your leadership, Trooper, is you've come in, you've identified gaps. You've realized there's some things that were lacking in this organization. And in my opinion, you've addressed that in this budget. So I just want to thank you for that. My question is this. You started at 16%. You got it down to 3.9. I want to thank the mayor as well.
I didn't ever hear 16.
Okay, 12% I heard the mayor say.
I didn't ever hear 16.
So if it started at 12, it went to, 3.9. Is there anything that you as staff see as concerns where the residents might say, as Councillor Chichuk pointed out, my user fees have gone up, or other areas where the constituents might see a reduction in programs or services? Is there anything that concerns you with this budget in terms of getting it to where it is?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, I can say to Council that there's no service delivery reductions that are being proposed within this budget. So the services that residents are used to are the services that residents are going to have continue going forward. We did, to bring down, there were significant pressures on the capital budget, and as we talked about earlier, we went through that capital project list. Mr. DePaula put quite a bit of time into that and looking at what projects could be shifted out along that horizon. There is pressure on gravel road conversions. That is one area that we've looked at and we've needed to push out a little bit. The costs of those conversions are significant, but even more so is the life cycling of those projects the asset management of them once they're converted. The cost escalates significantly, so that has been moved around. But that doesn't constitute in and of itself any service level reduction. What I think it is important to be aware of is the mechanics of a tax stabilization reserve and what does that mean when you're applying it. The one note for council is that when you do apply tax stabilization, you are creating a hole in the future budget that needs to be filled. So it is used, as council has astutely put out, during more difficult times, but it is something that you do need to fill when we get back to better times. And the strategy right now is we're looking, what Ms. Ripovs had relayed to you this evening is 1.17% growth revenue. We are looking to the time when growth and development continues. I did actually have a positive discussion with one of our developers earlier this afternoon about still wanting to move forward in this economy, which is fantastic. But we are using tax stabilization right now to bridge us into that period where we're getting growth revenue back into the budget. And that's when we can really see some of these investments begin paying off with service enhancements. But there's nothing in here in terms of service cuts for council or residents to be aware of. Certainly, those part-time to full-time conversions that we put forward, we understand they're oftentimes politically challenging to look at those ones, but there's going to be tremendous bang for the buck of those dollars for council if you're amenable to funding those. They will resolve a number of service delivery hiccups that we run into routinely here, and I think that residents would really notice that, particularly on the customer service side, if they were funded.
Just one final comment through you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to note or add to my point that continuous improvement is the key to our strategic success, so keep it up. And when you do public consultation on the dog park, I would like to play some role to try to work with the residents to achieve their goal during my by-election to try to see this come to fruition, if not this year, maybe next year. So again, appreciate all your work.
I'm going to come back to the other side. Oh, your mic. Well, I will. I'll just, Mike, do you have any further questions?
No, I'm fine right now, just thinking about it.
Okay. Well, you have 30 days to do your thinking and your writing, and that's good. So, Councillor Chichok, anything
Madam
more?
Mayor, my only question is that I couldn't write as fast as Ms. Ripovs was speaking, and while I think the weakness I have is a number of comments and/or numbers seem to be blurred to me. So rather than bothering, I know we have most of the presentation that was made in our package, but there is going to have to be some clarity, and I hope not to take away from their real work, but I do think we're going to need to ask some questions just to make sure we're not putting in amendments that are silly.
So, and that's your prerogative to do so. So what you will find, too, the thing you didn't have time to look at is the original report has many more of the details. The overheads that were provided was very high level, and the details, and I think you probably heard the reference to certain schedules where you would find more information. But for sure, to all of you, ask your questions.
Fair
that
enough.
is the time to do that.
You know
for
what the
sure.
old adage is, the devil is in the details, but we may need some help, just
Yeah, absolutely.
whatever.
Absolutely.
All right.
Anything else, Councillor?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess I was looking for clarity. So when Councillor Trombetta was asking you about the process, I heard you say you'll be out there. And so I just want to know if that was meant out there or just somewhere else in the horseshoe, because would you not be able to still vote on amendments? I'm just trying to understand that.
No. The amendments are council amendments. So the premise of this is that I have had my turn for 2 weeks to examine the budget, ask my questions, make suggestions, ask whether any of them are good. Some of them are not, as I've indicated already. So then I will separate myself from that process, and there's an opportunity. And I didn't bring it in with me, but do you remember there was a form if there are no amendments and the budget's just accepted? If we looked at this, which I did not ever 100% expect, and nobody said, I can't see anything, I think it's great the way it is, this would be it. This would be our budget. So I've had my kick at the can, so to speak. I will be sitting in the gallery because I want to hear the discussion, I want to hear the debate, but I will not be taking part in that, and I will not be voting. That's your job.
Oh, and is that just because you can't abstain from a vote? Is that why you be removed
No,
from the?
I think it's just
I'm
the design process. So
Okay.
then, as, I'll go back to the beginning of the process. So that
Yeah.
allows for that to happen. And then, if there was something crazy that was really, and I think I said out in
Outlandish, yeah.
left field somewhere, that becomes an amendment that you all pass, I have the opportunity to veto it. But I will say right now, I have no intention of vetoing amendments that are going to support our residents in any way,
Yeah.
shape, or form.
Okay.
So that would be that process. If I'm not going to use the veto that night, it's done. If I were to use the veto, then there's another whole collection of things that happen after that. Then you have a chance to come back and get rid of my veto, but I can vote on that. Like
Okay.
there is a series laid out.
Yeah, I was just looking for clarity because when you
Yeah.
mentioned it there, I was like, I would have just assumed, I
That
guess
I
by
would
default,
still
you would
be
still be
here?
able to,
No,
even if
no.
it was so much debate, you'd be able to still have a vote at the table
No,
there. So
I've had my
the
chance.
vote is non-existent.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've had my chance,
So
and now it's up to council to have the opportunity to
see what
examine
to
the
tweak.
budget, look for the things that you identify or the things that you're still questioning, and formulate amendments to send to the clerk.
So the one other question I have for tonight, through you back to our Director of Finance, our CFO, I'm not too sure what title you wish to go by.
It's a mouthful when you use them both.
It is. I guess, so it was regarding the OMPF fund there, was it Ontario Municipal Provincial Fund or whatever. It's gone up over the years. And so the reason I just wanted to bring this up, I was just looking for clarity. You might have mentioned, it's probably in here, but it feels like an hour ago when we had all the information thrown at us. How much did it increase from last year? And one of the things I wanted to mention is that, I know the mayor and myself, as well as other members of council, when we go to these conferences, that's one of the things. When I first started going to conferences last term, I think we were around 6 or 7, maybe 8 at most, $100,000 we were getting. Now we're getting just over $1 million. And those are some of the things we were advocating for. I know some members of council have always asked, like, hey, we don't see anything, but those are some of the conversations we've had. And that one particular item was something we had to really fight for because there was a moment where it looked like they were going to remove it all. So if you could just clarify what the difference was, and that was just a chance for me to kind of highlight to all the members of council that we are seeing some bang for those efforts we're making.
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Riley. So the increase in OMPF funding over 2025, so the increase in 2026 is $117,800.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate that because I don't have the number in front of me, but I feel like it was like in 2019, the mayor and I, or at the time she was councillor, but there was a group of us that had gone there, and that was one of the things we had to fight for. I'm glad to see we didn't lose it. In fact, we're seeing it help us out because if I'm not mistaken, at the time we were told if we lost that, it would have put a 14% tax increase on our local levy at that time. I think we were around 80,000 or 84,000. So, anyways, appreciate that information, and I'll save all my rest of my questions probably over the next 30 days. Caitlin, you're going to hear from me.
Okay. Councillor Trombetta, anything else? No, I'm good, thank you. Councillor Bradrick? Councillor Majak, no? Okay. So I think then that brings us to the end, and so I'm just going to reiterate what I said when I had my opening remarks. I am extremely pleased to inform you that the starting place is in a reasonable number. And I do, however, certainly hope that another 6 pairs of eyes on these budget details during the next period of time will result in you putting forth amendments that will make a positive difference for our residents. And the last thing I'm going to do is call on our clerk, who's going to just talk to you a little bit about your amendment process. So.
Through the mayor and to the rest of council, I'll be brief in my comments. You'll see an email from me tomorrow morning, which tomorrow, the November 18th, is the start of the 30-day amendment period. In your package, you have a physical version of the amendment forms for council to use. There is no preference on which you use. There will be a virtual form as well sent out to council tomorrow. You'll see in that form it's pretty straightforward. However, administration is always available to answer any questions. I would encourage members of council to first reach out to staff, particularly, Caitlin, to ensure that the amendment they're putting forward is accurate to what they actually wish the outcome to be. Once an amendment is submitted to me, there is no taking back said amendment. The amendment is put forward. At the end of the 30 days, there will be certain checkpoints every 7 days. I will attempt to inform council of how many amendments we've received, and a reminder that you only have so many days left to submit these amendments. These amendments are required to be sent in from the individual councillor. There is no availability to text in an amendment. There is no availability to call in an amendment to fill in for you. the individual counselor must fill in the amendment form, whether physically or virtually, and submit it to me in order for the amendment to be received officially from the office. At the end of that period, as the mayor has pointed out, December 31st, administration will take it back and review it. And then come the meeting, those amendments will be voted on. There'll be assurances and at least the attempt made during that meeting that amendments will be grouped together to rationalize it for council within a similar field. If council decides to go up or down a certain way, it'll be voted on in a similar fashion, so as council is not voting to move up and then later on in the meeting voting to go down on the same fund, for example. So that email will be sent out tomorrow. Council will get more information in that email in regards to the rules and regulations to refer back to, but in broad scheme, that is generally what council is looking forward to.
Any questions for clerk? Clear as mud?
Similar to Councillor Riley, I too would like to meet with some of the staff just to discuss some possible amendments, just to understand what the impact may be, both reducing or increasing.
So then what you'll need to do, just like anything else, is reach out for their availability and set up an appointment. Telephone will work too in some cases, I think, and, yeah, and you don't. With respecting their time and the hours of business, by the way, I'm going to say that. Please don't send something at 10 o'clock at night because it pops into your head. Please wait till the next morning. Don't send something on Sunday afternoon when you know that they're on their own time. So we do want to be very respectful in this process of staff's time and also of your own, of course. So, Councilor Riley.
Yeah, thank you again, Madam Mayor. So when would we be given, it just crossed my mind that we do a public survey that was not, from the best, I went through this pretty quickly.
No, you got it.
Is that the one that was already?
The one that was done. We did the survey very early, and you received the results of that already.
There's not anything that is going to be done, because I wasn't sure with the public consultation component if there would be additional stuff to come.
So the public consultation was done early
Yeah.
because we were criticized last year that there was no time for staff. They were already well into the budget, and even though that was done, members of the public seemed to think that their input, the fact that they bothered to do what they did, had no effect on the budget. So this was done much, much earlier,
Okay.
and the budget closed, and we've had a report of that. It came in September.
So has it just changed a little bit? Because before, I think there was a public consultation post the budget, just kind of weigh in what their thoughts were. Now we're kind of proactive in terms of just taking what their
No.
wishes.
So now if members of the public look at this online, they
Yeah.
should reach out to their counselors and say, I have a question about whatever.
Okay.
And then you can redirect if you need to, or it might be something that helps to formulate your own amendment that you're thinking of.
Yeah, I thought we were getting the best of both worlds, where they're getting a chance before and after.
No,
So, okay,
no,
thank you.
no. Well, they do, through their counselors.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I just meant
Yeah,
like they would
yeah.
have another chance to do something on their
No,
own
no.
online.
Only through their counsel this time.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question through you two. I'm not sure, perhaps a CAO. Is there been a media release about today's budget delivery, and so that the public is aware to take some special notes in case they do want to reach out to one of us for some input?
Thank you through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we will be doing that. I believe that'll be going out tomorrow morning.
And if you saw, I copied all of you on an email over the weekend where I was asked by a member of the press about looking at our website and trying to find information. And I just explained at that point. And the comment that came back, by the way, was, oh, that's understandable. That certainly it had not been presented to either the public or to you, members of council, and so that we were not releasing anything before tonight. So you have heard it. Anybody who's watching, anybody who chooses to watch it afterwards, will hear exactly what you've heard. And certainly, we encourage them to reach out if they have specific concerns. Something else?
Yeah, one additional comment. The report that includes the results of the public consultation, where would I, as a counselor, find that easily?
Caitlin has her hand up, so she knows where you'll find it easily.
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Braderick. So the results of the public budget engagement survey are posted on the Township's website under the budget webpage. And if I can just add on as well that the 2026 budget package that was presented to Council this evening will also be available on the same webpage, so the Township's budget webpage, tomorrow morning.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, last call. Anything further from anyone? Okay, well then, at the hour of, what is it, 9:35, I will adjourn this meeting.